Good morning, everyone. Welcome to GitHub Constellation 2022. We are delighted to have you join our third annual GitHub India event. We are all set for a massive celebration of the global developer community, especially India. My name is Dhanashree, and joining me here live is our very own Mohit. Hey, good morning, Mohit.
Good morning, Dhana, and good morning, everyone. I'm super excited. Yes, three times super, because this is the third GitHub India event here in India to celebrate the vibrant, the fab, the powerful developer community here in India. This is Mohit joining you all from Dilwalo Ki Delhi. A warm welcome to GitHub Constellation 2022. Dhana, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you all from the City of Gardens, Bengaluru. I'm a business development manager here at GitHub, and I work closely with our developer community across startups and enterprises. You know, Mohit, I love working here because of our keen focus on developer happiness and productivity. Mohit, do you want to share what you do at GitHub?
Absolutely. I'm enterprise solution specialist here at GitHub, and I lead go-to-market efforts for the APAC region. And the best part of my job, meeting customers, taking the best of GitHub products and services to them so that they can improve developer velocity.
By the way, Mohit, didn't you land in Delhi just last night, or are you still lost in Aruba?
There are, as they say, not all who wander are lost. But yes, you're right. I reached just last evening, and what an amazing time I had at Aruba, where I met a bunch of other hubbers and their families. If it was after a long time that we had such an in-person connect. To be honest, my heart still lies there, Dana.
Ooh, tell me more.
I will tell you a lot more about it, but I am feeling nostalgic for one more reason. This is the second time when I'm hosting GitHub event, and last year I hosted this event with Divya, Karan, Anisha, my fabulous co-host, and we had a blast. We played Holi, we played a little dress up to represents different cultural across the India developer community and had a fab time. Now I'm sure this year as well the event is brighter and bigger, isn't it?
Well, we are past holy season, Mohit, but challenge accepted. Let's see if we can get our amazing viewers to join in the fun along with us. Folks, send us your fun pictures and tweets and tag GitHub Constellation. You might win some GitHub swag.
Bring it on. So, why don't you tell everyone about what we have planned for today?
Of course, Mohit. This time around, we have three action packed days for you. Today's theme is GitHub for India. We have keynotes from our CEO, Thomas Domke, and Nandan Nilekani, who's the co founder of Infosys. Then we'll have a fireside chat with Anna Roy, who's the senior advisor at Niti Aayog. This will be followed by three panels focused on security, education, and community. And that's just day one.
GitHub for India. That's fascinating. And what's about day two?
So tomorrow we start with a dhamakedar performance by Abhinay, followed by keynotes from Stormy Peters, who is our Vice President of Communities, and Matthew McCullough, SVP of Product. Tomorrow we are dedicating the day for GitHub for developers, so we will be splitting into three tracks featuring community, DevOps, and security after our keynotes.
Wow, too many choices. I'm so happy for our audience. But then, how are we managing all this?
Well, worry not, Mohit. To help us moderate all those tracks, we have our amazing colleagues Gandhali, Divakar, Amol, and Richa who will be joining us. So, everyone, please feel free to join a track that's most relevant to you.
Great. And to step up the game, we have some amazing contests for you. Keep us posted. Hit us up on Twitter. We want to know what are the best moments that you like from this event. So, what about day three, Dhana? I'm all excited to hear about it.
Yeah, day three is all about GitHub for education. We have a keynote by Kunal Shah, who's the founder of Cred, and you'll meet Dheeraj and Arkodyoti from our education team. They'll be hosting a number of games and sessions. What's more, we will be joining you live featuring 4 hours of contents every single day.
Wow, that's superb. So, 3 days of super interesting conversations on how India developer community is raising the bar and how GitHub is working across country, commerce, and community pillars to bring the best of GitHub services to the developer ecosystem. I'm sure you are excited, but the best way to get most out of this event is to plan ahead. So go and check out the schedules on githubconstellation.com and just subscribe to your favorite events topics that you like out there. Dhana, what happens if folks can't join live?
Well, if you can't stay with us live all day, don't worry. We'll be posting video on demand streams here at githubconstellation.com after the event. And a quick reminder, we will be live on githubconstellation.com and GitHub handles across Twitch, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So, Mohit, what's happening next?
Let's get the event started. Coming up is our first keynote of the day from GitHub CEO Thomas Thomke. I actually met him at Aruba, and what a passionate person about developer community. Thomas has been fascinated about software development since his childhood, and he's passionate about building tools that help developers to do more, to achieve more. He's previously co founded Hockey App and led the company as CEO through its acquisition by Microsoft in 2014. Thomas holds a PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of Glasgow, UK, and currently he's based at Seattle area in United States. Fun fact, he is a huge Lego enthusiast. He loves coding and making his GitHub contributions graph super green is something that he's always focused on. So with that, Thomas, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this week. I'm here to kick off our third annual event in India, GitHub Constellation. We have so many great sessions for you, and I hope you enjoy them. I want to share 3 stories with you today. One about open source, one about enterprise, and one about education. My first story is about open source, and open source has won. If you think about it, open source is one of the very first creator communities. We often think about creators now as YouTube or TikTok stars, but open source maintainers have been the stars of the software world for over 20 years. And I want to introduce you to a creator in open source. His name is Karthik Iyer. Karthik is a software engineer at JP Morgan Chase, and he credits open source and the open source community for his success and for learning how to code. He was introduced to open source at his university, and he was able to turn his passion for movies and TV into meaningful open source contributions, including writing a small piece of code that became part of the Disney and Pixar Luca movie. You can read more about Karthik's story on the README project site. Karthik wants to become a full-time open source creator and leader someday. And here at GitHub, we wanted people like Karthik to have the opportunity and support to do that. So in 2019, we launched GitHub Sponsors as a way for you as a maintainer to sustain your project and for you as a consumer to financially support the people and organizations who design, build, and maintain the open source projects you depend on. Sponsors helps make open source a viable career path for people to create and contribute to our digital infrastructure. Karthik is a developer on GitHub, and you may already know this, but here at GitHub, we put the developer first. And we do that with everything we do, with every decision that we make, with every product we design, with every process we are thinking about. We always put the developer first. And we do this not only because we are a developer company, but we realize that the later you get developers involved in the process, the worse outcome companies have. For example, when finding security issues in production. When we put the developer first, we are empowering them to solve issues before they appear. We are helping you write safer and more secure code, ultimately allowing you to have more time to be creative. And this approach has helped GitHub to grow to a community of over 73 million developers, including people like Karthik, and more than 4 million organizations. But beyond that, when I look around, I see that every developer is effectively a GitHub customer. Because you are downloading all your dependencies, all your packages, Everything you do in your development lifecycle is somehow connected to GitHub. And of course, open source collaborates on GitHub. We call all this the interconnected community. There is no single company that can outcompete open source for innovation. Every line of code that is written at GitHub, at our customers' companies, and by open source maintainers effectively builds on the work of thousands of other developers from around the world. We have seen India-based companies consuming and contributing more and more open source code in the last year, and there's been so much innovation and growth at companies like Infosys. So my second story is about how Infosys uses GitHub Enterprise and GitHub Advanced Security to collaborate and share their expertise with customers and the world. Infosys is on a journey to achieve excellence and become even more resilient. With hundreds of thousands of employees working in practically every industry, they use GitHub to collaborate and write secure code. And they do this in an environment that increases developer velocity and happiness. Since adopting GitHub, Infosys has seen a 20% increase in velocity. How amazing is this? This is why I love working at GitHub, helping developers stay focused on doing what they love to do, being creative by writing code. And it's not just large enterprises. Startups are using GitHub to innovate and be part of the interconnected community. Last year, we expanded the GitHub Accelerate program that supports startups in their growth journeys by providing access to GitHub's enterprise products. And we now have over 500 startups in this program, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for participating. We are seeing all kinds of startups coming into the program, from e-commerce, fintech, consumer apps to SaaS and software infrastructure companies. Not only are open source teams, startups, and large enterprises building on GitHub, but students turn to GitHub to start their journey and learn how to build software. In fact, we nearly doubled the number of students on GitHub in India in the last year. The students are creating a number of amazing things, and we want to support their growth through GitHub Externships, a program that helps connect students with companies in India to gain on-the-job experience and succeed in an enterprise environment. Since launching last year, we have announced 2 cohorts of the externship program and have placed over 150 students into 39 partner organizations. And we also now have over 80 GitHub campus experts based in India that support our growing developer community. They strive to build inclusive spaces to learn, share their experiences, and build projects together. And here's a great example.
Hi everyone, I'm Khushbu Verma. I'm from India and currently I work as a software engineer.
Hey everyone, my name is Kunal Kushwaha and I'm currently an undergraduate student from India.
I joined the GitHub Campus Experts program in April 2018 and it has been a wonderful ride since then. To me, the GitHub Campus Expert program means an opportunity for me to grow as a student leader and also to bring opportunities and resources to my local community.
So I joined the Campus Experts program last year in 2021. Believe it or not, I applied quite a lot of times, I think twice before I got selected. And I think one of the things that kept me going were the community members.
As a GitHub Campus Expert, we organize multiple events on campus. These events include sessions on technologies, hackathons, or just networking events. In these events, we ensure that we bring together a diverse set of audience and we cater to all of their needs. This helps in establishing relationships and also helps people improve their technical and interpersonal skills.
The most important thing that I learned being a part of the Campus Experts program is how to scale communities. If you want to start a school, you cannot be the only teacher. You need to get more folks involved and give up control. And the second most important thing that I learned was, even though we are called Campus Experts, you don't have to be an expert to start contributing or even applying to the program.
Because of the GitHub Campus Experts program, I got multiple opportunities. One of them was to become a GitHub Field Expert for India region. And being a GitHub Field Expert, I organized India's first ever GitHub Field Day, where we brought together 150 student community leaders from all over India and provided them a platform to come together, collaborate, ideate, and enhance their relationships.
Speaking of opportunities, GitHub provides a lot of support for your events, your content. For example, I created a tutorial on GitHub and it got close to 500,000 views after it was published on the GitHub Campus Experts website. You also get to be a part of the huge network of campus experts and program managers around the world who teach you quite a lot.
After graduating from the GitHub Campus Experts program, I joined Microsoft as a software engineer, and I think that the program helped me learn a great deal of skills. It helped me improve my technical and interpersonal skills and also made me more empathetic as a leader.
So I'm a final year student in tech with a lot of career paths in front of me, and I believe the GitHub Campus Experts have introduced me to the world of developer relations, and I'm looking forward to applying all the knowledge that I have gained as a campus expert in the real world when I'll be joining full time.
Thank you, Kashbu and Kunal, for sharing your stories with us. As a developer-first company, we love to work with all of you to make GitHub and the communities that build on our platform a better place. And so when we think about software development today, it is no longer the stereotypical solitary developer. It is a group, a team sport collaborating with each other. It's a global team of developers collaborating from around the world. So I want to leave you with 3 takeaways. 1, open source has won. If you are an open source maintainer, you're working on some of the most exciting stuff. Developers from around the world are working and collaborating together on open source. 2, the interconnected community is a powerful one. Open source, education, and enterprises, we are all in it together. We are building the future of software, and our mission is to accelerate human progress through developer collaboration. And 3, we are committed to India. We are committed to growing GitHub in India, to hiring in India, to supporting Indian developers, maintainers, and students by giving back through programs through GitHub sponsors, accelerate the open source bootcamps and externships. And you know, it was only a few short years ago that GitHub didn't even have a presence in India. Over the last 2 years, we have heavily invested by growing an engineering team, by growing a customer success team, by working with you. And I'm happy to announce that India's community of developers that use GitHub has grown to more than 8 million, and we're just getting started. And I hope you are as excited as I am. Enjoy the next few days at GitHub Constellation.
Wow, that was an exciting keynote, right, Mohit?
Yeah, and I'm so proud to hear that we have 8 million plus developers on GitHub in India today. And we are the second largest country now to make so many contributions to the open source world.
Absolutely. And loved hearing about how the GitHub Sponsors program is helping consumers financially support people like Karthik and organizations who design, build, and maintain open source projects.
Absolutely. Think of the impact. Infosys achieving 20% efficiency at velocity at which they ship code. What scale are we talking about here? That's great and so fascinating.
Exactly. And how exciting to hear that we are launching the Open Source Bootcamp for Startups program in India.
Yes, folks. So it's all great. Remember, engage with us on GitHub Constellation discussions. We are very excited to hear from you on what are the best moments or best comments that you are hearing across the event. Stay tuned, keep us posted. What do we have next, Hannah?
Well, coming up next is our first guest keynote by Nandan Nilekani, co-founder and chairman of Infosys Technologies. Nandan is also the founding chairman of the Unique Identification Authority of India. He recently co-founded and is the chairman of EkStep, a not-for-profit aimed at improving basic literacy for millions of children. Born in Bengaluru, where I am right now, Nandan received his bachelor's degree from IIT Bombay. He has won a number of awards, including the prestigious Padma Bhushan, Asia's Businessman of the Year, the Economist Social and Economic Innovation Award, and so many, many more. Over to you, Nandan.
Good day, and I'm really privileged and honored to be addressing this GitHub Constellation India event. The open source movement has become more and more relevant around the world and in India. And I'm truly delighted to be addressing all of you. Before I get into the open source aspect of it, I thought I would just tell you why India is now in its tech decade, and therefore why the work that you do has become even more critical and important. There are 3 trends in the technology world in India, which are all coming together and creating an extraordinary opportunity. The first is the global growth of technology and digital services from India. The pandemic led to digital acceleration worldwide, and every major company is reinventing its technological infrastructure to be more digital, to use more AI, more open source, more cloud, more analytics, consumerization of the user experience, and so on. This has led to a huge opportunity for India because India has become the place with the largest number of talent and developers. Just to give you an idea of the scale of acceleration, it took 30 years for the Indian software industry servicing the global market to reach $100 billion in revenue. The second $100 billion came in 10 years. And now the industry does about $227 billion in revenue. The third $100 billion is going to come in 3 to 4 years. So the first 100 million was 30 years, the second 100 billion was 10 years, and the third 100 billion is coming in 3 to 4 years. That shows you the acceleration of what is happening globally. In India, we currently have about 4.5 million developers across the IT industry and startups and so on. This is expected to double to about 9 to 10 million developers in the next decade. So what took 40 years to reach 4.5 million developers will now double in just 10 years. So you see that there's the acceleration of talent in this industry. And nowhere else in the world there is such a wide pool of developers and engineering talent. So this is trend number one. Trend number two is, of course, the dramatic growth in the startup industry. We have seen that the last year was the coming of age of the startup industry. We saw many unicorns, I think over 40 unicorns. In fact, half the unicorns totally in India came up just in the last 1 year. And even this year, we're seeing the growth of many unicorns. We also saw that the wall between the private market and the public market came down with many of the companies that began as new wave digital companies went public. There's Nykaa or Paytm or Zomato, and we expect to see more in the coming years. And India is facing a huge opportunity because on the one hand, global capital is coming here, even though there is some amount of capital slowdown because of the fact that the interest rates are going up in the US and so on. It will continue to be in India because a lot of the capital that was earlier going to China is coming to India. So that's number one. We are seeing a lot of opportunity in India, both in the domestic products market as well as in the global SaaS market. So we see a lot of companies. And then, of course, emerging new areas like crypto and metaverse and so on. And India has a tremendous pool of very exciting young founders who have the ambition, the energy, and the goal of creating global companies. So the startup world is really growing very fast, and they will provide a significant role in India. And of course, many of them will use open source products and so on. The third thing is something which happened in India over the last 30 years, last decade, which is the growth of what we call as India's digital public goods. And this is essentially population scale digital platforms that are available for everyone to use. They are very high volume, very low cost, very small transaction value, and all in real time. The first of these was Aadhaar, which I essentially led the organization called UID-AI. From 2009 to 14, I was employee number one of this government startup. And that led to 1.3 billion people being issued a digital ID called Aadhaar, which has become ubiquitous for authentication and KYC across the country. This is a platform that does 15 million authentications a day, 5 million eKYCs a day. So whether you want to open a bank account or buy a mobile connection or buy a mutual fund, you can use Aadhaar eKYC. So that is one thing which has happened, which is part of the digital public goods. This also was combined with the banking sector to create the direct benefit transfer program. So every bank account is linked to an Aadhaar number, and there are over 700 million unique Aadhaar-linked bank accounts. And this is used for direct transfer of money by the government to literally hundreds of millions of beneficiaries in the country. It all happens in real time, zero corruption, and it reaches the bank account instantly with this modern infrastructure which we have created. And this infrastructure was very useful during the pandemic because the government wanted to send billions of dollars into individual bank accounts, each bank account getting a few hundred rupees. And they were able to do that using the DBT. And India runs the world's largest DBT program. And at the other end, there is something called the Aadhaar-enabled payment system, which allows you to withdraw money using a phone and a biometric authentication in any village. And that system alone does maybe 100 million transactions every month. So all these things have made a dramatic impact on the people and the benefit they get. Then we had the development of UPI. UPI was built by the National Payment Corporation of India, a non-profit company set up by all the banks under the sponsorship of the RBI. I am an advisor on technology and innovation to public policy to NPCI, and I worked with them on the creation and launch of UPI, a payment system that was designed in 2013 to 2015, and it launched in May of 2016. In October of 2016, UPI did 100,000 transactions. In November 2016, you had the withdrawal of currency notes, what's popularly called as demonetization. And then digital payments took off. Last month alone, UPI did 5 billion payments. And the transaction value of UPI in the financial year ending March 31st, 2022 was over $1 trillion. So this is the most successful payment system in the world. It's very high volume, as I said. It's low cost. In fact, it is zero cost to the consumer. You can do small transactions. And today, when I live in Koramangala, Bangalore, and when I go out for a walk, I see vegetable vendors and coconut sellers accepting UPI payments. So clearly, this has become something that has democratized payments. Then there's the new account aggregator system which is coming, which allows individuals and businesses to leverage their own data to get benefits. So a small business can use its GST data to get a loan. A consumer can use his salary data to get a loan, and so on. And account aggregator is a big thing which is happening. Another part of our digital public goods was the FASTag system. I led a committee in 2010 to design the FASTag system for road toll collection. That does 100 crores a day of collection, about 40,000 crores a year of collection on FASTag. And FASTag was designed as a platform which can be used for other applications. So increasingly now you're seeing startups doing parking, congestion charges, paying fuel bills, all using FASTag. So there are many, many such examples of the fact that India is building this range of digital public goods. Now, all these three trends are coming together. The fact that the global technology work is being developed in India and it will reach 10 million people in 10 years. The fact that we have a thriving ecosystem of startups, founders, venture capital, companies going public, which will create lots of innovation in India. And that we have built a vast array of digital public goods. And many more digital public goods are coming, like the ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce, and so on. What is important to note is the important and huge role that the open source movement is playing in all these areas. Today, GitHub has become the de facto place for all open source. And I'm told that India is the third largest base of developers in the world. And I'm sure that in the coming years, it will become the first or the second largest base of developers. So clearly, one thing is that India will have the largest pool of open source developers. That's in terms of quantity. But it's also about quality. It's about what kind of contributions you make and how important a role you play in the global open source movement. I do believe there are a large number of committers to major international open source platforms from India, and I believe that will only continue. So both in quantity and quality, we expect to see a large contribution from the Indian open source community. But it's also important that India become a source of open source platforms themselves. So we have to bring all this together to actually create open source platforms which can be used by everyone else. And in this area, in fact, in the digital public goods that I talked about, open source has played a very important role. When we designed the Aadhaar stack, Aadhaar platform in 2009, this was 13 years back, we took a very conscious decision that we would build this using a completely open source stack, using Hadoop and MySQL and all kinds of things, which, we kept changing the stack, but they're all using open source elements, MQ series and so on. And at that time, it was a radical thing. Nobody in India had done such a large project using open source. We did it. And that is one of the reasons that we have a platform that can issue 1.3 billion Aadhaars, do 50 million authentications a day at a very low cost, because the entire stack is using open source. And in fact, subsequently, there has been an initiative called MOSIP, which is a modular open source in identity platform, which is being developed as a public good, developed at IIIT Bangalore. And many countries are using this open source platform. So MOSIP is the first example, one of the first examples of a complete open source platform stack built in India being used elsewhere in the world. The second thing is the entire UPI platform built by NPCI is again built using an open source stack. The entire thing is open source. And it is now being designed to do 1 billion transactions a day. So you can see how open source products have been used in UPI. That has made UPI very, very cheap and very, very easy, very low cost hardware. And that's one of the reasons why NPCI is able to offer it at such a low or no cost. And in fact, NPCI has become one of the foremost users of open source, and using the underlying open source transaction infrastructure UPI, many of the other products from NPCI, like AEPS and IMPS, have all been reconfigured to sit on top of the open source stack. And that's been a very big moment within NPCI. And therefore, UPI and Aadhaar, both two of the biggest platforms ever built in the world, are all completely built using open source. A third example is something which a foundation that I support called Ekstep Foundation has built, which is a complete set of open source modules for education, learning, and skilling called Sunbird. It's all on GitHub. It's all out there. It's all under a very good, MIT license. And many people are using modules from that. The Indian government has built an education platform called Diksha, which was very useful in the pandemic because it could reach millions of teachers and students. The entire Diksha platform, the underlying infrastructure is all open source Sunbird from India. And that again is being looked at by countries around the world as something that they can take to reimagine their learning and education. A fourth example is what happened in the pandemic. During the pandemic, India had to launch a program to get multiple, get millions of people, billion people to get vaccinated. One part, of course, was to make sure that we had the vaccines manufactured here, like what was done by Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech. But equally important was the digital infrastructure for that. And hence the government launched the CoWIN platform. It was essentially run and managed by my old colleague and friend Ram Sevak Sharma, who is the CEO of NHA. And because of that platform, 1 billion people could get the vaccinations and everything could be tracked and they could get the appointments and go anywhere and get the vaccination. And that was a huge success. Along with CoWIN, there was also the vaccination certificate, which is another open source platform called DVOC. And DVOC is an open source platform that can generate a digital certificate, which is encrypted, digitally signed, QR coded, verifiable online or offline, usable in printed form on your smartphone or in your digital locker. And in India, 1.8 billion vaccination certificates have been generated, all using an open source tool. And that open source tool is now being used in other countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and so on. So we are seeing many, many examples of this open source in India being used across the world. And finally, let me talk about the AI-based open source stack being developed for the National Language Translation Mission. This is going to be a complete open set of AI models, open data, and an architecture which allows all of Indian languages to be able to translate into each other, speech to speech, speech to text, text to speech, text to text. Everything is being covered. And this is again being designed under the National Language Translation Mission of METI to be a completely open source platform. So let me end by saying that India is at a very critical and transformative point because of all these various developments. Open source movement is very, very important for India and the world. And the GitHub platform has become the de facto standard for open source. I do believe all of you can play a huge role in building a bigger community of open source developers, in playing a larger role in global open source products, and launching India's own open source products that can be taken globally and therefore make a huge difference to the transformation of India and the world. Thank you and have a great event.
What an inspiring keynote from Nandan, Mohit. Isn't it amazing to note that Indian developers are set to take on the world? And so proud to hear that GitHub is helping with that.
Absolutely. I had goosebumps so many times in this keynote. 40 unicorns minted in India just last year. Fabulous. The growth of digital public goods like Aadhaar, direct benefit transfer, and UPI. And the interesting thing is, zero cost to consumers. It's all just so fascinating what's happening here in India.
Absolutely. And I love Nandan's call to action, encouraging the Indian developer community to contribute to the open source movement. Looks like we already have some folks tweeting at us, Mohit. Can we see some of them? Looks like we have Swaminathan blog saying thanks for the recognition and first time seeing this level of honesty in advertisement as software Indians are having powerful brains. Well, Swaminathan, that's what we aim to do. Be very, very honest with you all. I think there's another tweet, right, Mohit? Can we see that
Yes,
as
let's
well?
take more. Yep. So we have another tweet from ACGT01, and it's a shout out for Thomas talking at GitHub Constellation about the inspiring story of Karthik Iyer contributions made it to the Pixar movie, Luca. Yes, absolutely. That's the magic, that users from anywhere in the world, including India, are contributing to global projects.
Wow, can we see one last one, please? Looks like Ashish 11 Chowda is saying Nandan is leading the fintech revolution with a huge digital ecosystem. Hashtag GitHub Constellation. Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Ashish. Thank you for sharing that. We are super pumped up about that. And as a nod to the Indian developer community, we would love if our viewers could join in the fun with us, share a picture wearing your favorite Indian outfit, and tweet us and use the hashtag GitHub Constellation to win some swag.
And on that note, let's tune into a groovy take on how India developer community is leveraging GitHub to drive innovation globally. Let's roll.
Here we go. Open your eyes, watch us please. Tippity tap, tapping these keys. Scoping from idea to stable release. We're busy coding the India we need. This went to Mars, coded by whom?
Who set up an overnight COVID war room? Who's fixing the planet, saving the trees?
Who's tracking tigers as they live free? There's a new India being built today, and we're coding to make it that way. There's a new India being built today, and we're coding to make it that way.
Who's helping the disabled find their voice?
And women in STEM make some noise. Who helps deliver food every time?
Who's making it easy to pay online?
There's a new India being built today, and we're coding to make it that way. We're on it, yeah, we're on it, and we're coding to make it that way.
GitHub commits to India.
There is a new India getting built today, and we are on it. Coming up is our panel discussion on open core to open source, building a business model. And the panel will be driven by Gandhali Samant, who is the Director for Developer Ecosystem and Market Engagement at GitHub. Gandhali, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you in today's panel discussion. Our topic for today is open core to open source, building a business model. My name is Gandhali Samant, and I lead the developer ecosystem and market engagement charter at GitHub. As you all know, open source is everywhere. There is hardly any industry where open source adoption or penetration hasn't happened yet. According to a survey conducted in 2017, 99% of organizations use open source in some format. And then there are organizations who have gone ahead and built their entire business model around open source. In today's panel discussions, we are going to talk to founders or co-founders or for such organizations who have built thriving businesses around open source. So without further ado, let's get introduced to our panel today. We will start with Neha Gupta, who is the co-founder of Keploy, an open source API testing platform. She has been in product development for around 7 years. She has also contributed to open source projects like XWiki, Jenkins, etc. And she loves to mentor students in different programs such as Google Summer of Code, GCI, and Outreachy. Welcome, Neha.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
We are very happy to have you here. Next, we have Pranav Raj Tripuran, who is the co-founder and CEO of Chatwood. He's a FOSS enthusiast, and he's passionate about building developer communities. Welcome, Pranav.
Hey, thanks for having me here. Excited to be here. Thanks.
Thanks. Our third panelist for the day is Harini Jankiram. Harini is the co-founder and CEO of Roi.io, a low-code platform to build your product backend in minutes, all in the browser. Prior to this, Harini was a VP of engineering at BlackRock and also a partner at an early stage VC. She's an advocate of open source software as well as women in tech. She holds a master's degree in computer engineering from University of Texas at Austin. Welcome, Harini.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
And our fourth panelist is Rishabh Mehta, founder of Frappe and ERP Next. His passion is to revolutionize business software by building a high-quality, free, and open-source ERP. ERP Next is a fully featured platform and can be used by teams in many different domains. Rishabh likes to be personally involved in all the activities right from software development to team building and does many different roles at his organization. Welcome, Rishabh.
Thanks, Nandan. Great to be here.
Okay, so as our topic suggests today, we are going to talk about open source to open core building business model. So my first question is to you, Neha. How do you differentiate between open source and open core?
Okay. Since open source is now very ubiquitous and widely adopted, so everyone is pretty aware that it's really available software, right? But I want to specify licensing that a true open source license or a platform is something that is allowing its users or anyone to use, edit, or even redistribute or sell to their heart's desire. And when it comes to open core, on the other, it's more like, to me, it's a business model to monetize the open source software. So, the idea is simple, that build an open source product, but offer an additional premium functionality, which is under a commercial license that restricts the modification and redistribution of that. So that's, according to me, is a core difference in open source and open core.
Thanks, Harini. Pranav, would you like to add anything to it?
I think so. To me, there is always a community as well as a business for an open source based businesses, right? Like, for example, as if you take an example of Chatwood, we have a larger community who actually uses our open source product, which has most of the features, but it doesn't have a set of features which might not be relevant for a smaller users or smaller businesses. So I think the community, to build the community, we need manpower, we need the capital, we need more and more people to get involved. So what I feel is so as a distinction and as a difference between open source and open core, what I see is to build the larger community, we need some way to capitalize the existing product. And so there, we have some features which will be restricted under a certain license. So at Chatwood, what we are building is we have open source product which is in MIT license, and there is a set of features which is under enterprise license, which has which needs a license to use. So yeah, I think for me the difference is open core actually helps to build open source communities.
Thanks, Pranav and Neha. I think it gave us good clarity about how to differentiate between open source and open core. My next question is for you, Rishabh. How do you build an open core business model? What is the thought process behind it?
We actually are fully open source. We are not in the open core side of things, and we decided that so open core and open source, like Pranav said, that there is a lot of good reason, right? I mean, you have to sustain your business at some level, and open core is a great way to identify features. I come from a slightly different perspective that, I mean, there is like, where do you draw the line ultimately, right? I mean, that is a very difficult question that people need to ask, that ultimately, if you're going to ask your users to, if you're going to position your product as an open source product, users do expect that, your product is, really free and open source, right? And for us, we really monetize from hosting and services. That's our model. So we kind of come from the maybe the outlier in this group here. So yeah.
Well, Outliers is good because you told us about how your open source business model works. Harini, would you like to add, is your model open source or open core?
Yeah, I can talk about our approach to open core, or what we like to call commercial open source model as well. That's kind of prevalent right now. So we have a base open source model that's completely free. The code base, you can self-host, or we also have a hosted version that's also free. And we have a paid model that we're actually still launching soon that gives you access to pro features that, in addition to the base open source version, gives you things that are dependent on more infrastructure, or things that need you to maintain things that typically a one person or a team using the open source model might not need. So logically, it makes sense that those kind of features go into the hosted pro paid features. So that's how we are approaching the open core business model.
Thanks, Harini. So as we see, there is this trend today, right? It's growing to be an open source or open core based organization. So my question is for you, Pranav. Why did you decide to be an open core based organization?
So yeah, I think before coming to that, I would like to answer why it is open source. There is if you look at the regulations right now, right, like in GDPR or CPR or any data regulation which is coming up in the world, companies are moving towards having their own infrastructure, the managed infrastructure for their customers, so that they don't transfer data to third party, right? So at that point, it makes sense to have a self-hosted, kind of a software. And open source actually helps us to do that in a pretty good way. And when we actually thought about making it open source and building a business out of it, there were a couple of options for us. One was we completely open source it and then build a cloud version of the software, just like Rushabh is doing, or we could actually build the entire thing as open source and use support subscriptions from that. And the third thing was, which was proven and which has a lot of potential, was that you have a base model where which is used by a larger community, and you have a set of features which is restricted to a set which will be used by either larger companies or people who wanted customized features. So we figured that building larger businesses requires this kind of approach, and hence we actually went into being an open core company rather than adopting other models.
Thanks, Pranav. Rushabh, would you like to tell us why did you decide to be an open source based organization?
So we started way back, right? I mean, we started in 2008 when there was very little awareness of open source business models, and the prevalent thinking in 2008, 2009, I mean, 10 years ago, was that only Red Hat makes money from open source, right? Nobody else does. I mean, today we are in a very different market, very different scenario, where you have a whole bunch of open source companies, commercial open source companies that have come out. And I mean, it's essentially due to the rise of the cloud. I mean, once the cloud became the de facto deployment model for software, the whole movement to distribute software on the cloud became open source, and developers started taking more decisions. And the best way to get to a developer is through an open source. So it's just a very new thing that we have seen. Obviously, the MongoDB going public, and the acquisition of GitHub by Microsoft, right? These were very, very important events for the whole ecosystem to shift to a pro open source model. I mean, this wasn't there 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, nobody would touch open source. We have seen a whole tectonic shift in this business. I mean, we come from a more traditional mindset. My business model was essentially what WordPress was, that we will provide the software for free, but we will provide hosting. Currently, we don't distinguish between the software, and it does give us some disadvantage. But I think in the long run, we do believe that there will be enough proprietary, or there will be enough services, commercial services, that we will be able to build around hosting and around building a network and around delivering services, that we will be able to sustain even without going open core. We've stuck to it. I mean, our license has been GNU GPL v3 from the get-go, and we don't intend to change it now. If I were to start today, maybe, I don't know.
See, so all of us know that I would say the success of open source projects is dependent on the number of people are contributing it or using it, right? So adoption is the key here. So my question is to you, Harini, how do you drive adoption of your platform?
Yeah, so we focus on a couple of things to drive adoption. First, through awareness, where we are, trying to talk about what the project does and how it can help other people build their products easily through various things like content, videos, and easy to use templates that people can really fork and get started. And then we have like significant emphasis on growing the community via contributions and conversations, and also integrations with other tools in the platform that we can collaborate with. So it's not like we are building in isolation. We are collaborating with other open source project creators and the community. We are also working on engagement at a community level by being proactive and addressing various issues, PRs, and like Discord messages, because I think at a core level, open source is basically community. So engaging with the community, keeping it thriving, is one of our core goals as well.
Thanks, Harini. Neha, would you like to add your thoughts to it? How do you guys drive adoption at Kiploid?
Yeah, I mean, we're still very early stage, so I don't have much to add, but we've been getting a lot of traction from, social channels, like discussing on subreddit or of Go community, developer communities. And these are helping us with, getting a lot of feedback and spreading the word throughout the community, people talking about Kiploy in different blog posts and video podcasts. That is a major channel. And also, since Kiploy is an API testing platform which captures data in a very intensive manner. So to be 100% open source and that adoption to be present within the developer community was something that was our strategy to drive adoption amongst developers.
Thanks, Neha. Thanks for sharing that with us. So my next question is actually open for all four of you. I would like each of you to kind of answer this. So what are some of the advantages as well as disadvantages that you have encountered of being an open source or an open core based organization? Pranav, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I think advantages are obvious. You get a lot of traction from and adoption from open source community. You'd be able to build a good community of product enthusiasts without much effort. So I guess that actually adds to the effort required for you to build such a community if you are a closed source product is much high. That being open source reduces that. And on the flip side of it, it also add a much more I would say not a disadvantage, but it gives you much distraction in terms of people might want different things. How do you prioritize these different requests? How do you prioritize your product roadmap? How do you prioritize the requests which are coming in. So it's just that, like, it's in the open. You need to build a process to get a handle on that. So I think, like, being open source is always an advantage because people can see the code. It helps you in sales because people can just test out the open source product and then reach out to you if it is interesting. And yeah, I mean, again, like, plus good advantage is that, like, you have a good community of product people, like people who love the product. So
Thanks, Pranav. Harini, have you seen any disadvantages as well of being an open core based organization?
Yeah, I mean, there are, as Pranav mentioned, a lot of advantages, but in terms of disadvantage, it kind of adds another layer of complexity to a product that you're already building, essentially because, every feature or anything in your roadmap that you're thinking about, you need to think about where it fits, whether it fits logically in the open source or it has to be in your kind of hosted or like the paid version, and how do you actually then deploy it to the community in a way that is transparent, because the advantages of open source is also that you are maintaining a level of transparency for people. So essentially, deploying different features in a more reliable and consistent manner across your open source and the closed source kind of proprietary core model that you're building on top of it. So that's something that could be a disadvantage for your community.
Thanks, Harini. Rishabh, any other thoughts? Since you said you are a little bit of outlier here, what are your experiences?
I mean, yesterday I was at a discussion with students about, building businesses around open source. And I mean, so building a business is hard. Building a good product is even harder. And building a good product and a business and giving it away for free is like you're just, just adding all the difficulties, right? This is the most difficult part in a way, right? Because you are giving away a product for free. You're building something good first, right? Because open source and open core, or whatever you want to call it, is essentially brutally meritocratic. I mean, just because you're giving away your stuff for free doesn't mean people are going to use it. They want it to be as good as consumer grade software. So that's the expectation. They want it free, right? And then it comes with a lot of expectations from the community. It comes with a lot of entitlement. It's communities are not kind. I mean, if you're giving away something for free, doesn't mean that they'll always love you for it, right? They will expect more. They'll expect you to build features. Even contributors, right? I mean, I see some early stage projects, right? I mean, early stage projects love contributors, right? But once you hit a point, you don't want contributors because you realize that contributors are not here for long, right? Especially people who are just going to contribute one thing and then go away and then leave it to you to maintain their contribution. So you really want to build a community that's long lasting, that has a long-term perspective, are going to be around for a long time. So I think there are a lot of disadvantages in building this model. The big advantage is obviously that you get distribution from a business perspective. You get marketing and distribution for free. But yeah, it's a very hard business, to be very honest.
Thanks, Rishabh. Neha, do you have anything else to add to what all the other three panelists said?
Yeah, I mean, majorly I agree with the advantages that there is unlimited potential in terms of getting feedback from the community, since there is mutual transparency. You can talk about and mutually brainstorm with upcoming feature, bugs, fixes, community likes and dislikes, and the community support. It only gets trickier or confusing, as a disadvantage. Sometimes you get an overwhelming input from the community on various topics. For example, this recently happened that we wanted to add product telemetry to the open source Kiploy platform, and 90% of the users were okay with it. But there are, 5 to 10% which are very highly vocal when they are against something or they do not like something. And this kind of situations create a confusion with the direction sometimes. And it is not just with a simple feature. It can get to and even to the technical architecture and different things. So yeah, that's something that where it gets trickier.
Thanks, Neha. So you and Rishabh both brought out aspects of community in this whole process, right? So my next question, and again, I'm from GitHub, so our focus is all around developers. So I really want to know what has been experience for each of you to target this developer audience via open source using your platform. So again, Neha, maybe we'll just start with you and go around the clock.
Sure. I mean, we generally, talk to developers and SDTs in the Go community, the channels, since Deploy currently supported Go. We talk to developers on GitHub around, those discussions, what could be added more or not. And even when we changed our Deploy logo, we took leverage of GitHub community and the sources that we have, and it really helps us with coming up different aspects of seeing a feature or our user experience and taking into actions. So that way, it is really helping us to target developers and take feedback from them and reiterate the loop.
Thanks, Neha. Pranav, what has been your experience?
Yeah, I think the reason why we started open source and targeted developers was that during our the place where I worked last, we had this internal tool which we used for customer support and all the customer data. It's generally not the actual business. It's actually kind of an internal tool. Most people don't like it, and it's always standard. There might be a small element which you want to tweak, you want to update. And for that reason, you might be building the entire thing from scratch. So we wanted to avoid that. We wanted to give people a base platform where they can build their tools, to organize their customer data, to organize their support requests and stuff like that. So what we have provided is we build a platform where we can developers can build on their own integrations and their own extensions on top of Chatbot. And so far we have seen quite a lot of things which we couldn't even imagine if we are doing it as a closed source product. So I think being direct to developers and getting their attention is really important to us. So, yeah.
Thanks, Pranav. Rishabh, anything that you want to add here, since you have been doing this for a very long time, and also if you have seen any change in last few years?
Yeah, I mean, so we actually ran two large projects. One is ERP Next, which is which is targeted to almost every business out there because it does financial accounting. And there we are not mostly there. The kind of developers we are dealing with are mostly freelancers. So some company wants an ERP Next implementation, they'll get hold of a freelancer, and then that freelancer may or may not continue to contribute in the community. And out of that, we've probably able to identify 4 or 5 really good long-term contributors through the community, right? And the other big project we run is Frappe Framework, which is essentially the tool that we use to build ERP Next, and it's kind of a low-code rapid application development. That's what it used to be called before the term low-code was. I've lived through both of those cycles. So yeah, it's a rapid application development tool, low-code framework in these days, and that is more targeted to developers. Though we haven't really been out there promoting Frappe as much as ERP Next. And our experience is it really depends on the quality of software you're giving out, right? I mean, our software wasn't that great for many years. Now it's reasonably good, or I would say it's acceptable. So the kind of software you put out is the kind of developers you'll attract. So it's very brutally meritocratic out there. So yeah, I mean that's.
Thanks, Rishabh. Harini, do you want to add anything to this last question?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're building a product that's for targeted non-developers audience, like marketing or operations, then open source is possibly not something they're mainly looking for. They're looking for something that solves their problem, and they don't care if the product is open source or not. Whereas like if you're focusing on building a developer tools product, which is what we are doing with a dev tool, and I can speak for myself or like how other developers feel, if there's a completely closed source option and there is an open source option, I tend to gravitate towards the open source because if you hit some feature limit or something like that, you can continue to extend at a code and contribute back. And so with Roy, we are building like a no-code platform that basically allows you to get started like a no-code, but then you can continue to extend at a code level anytime you need. And our experience with seeing how developers are extending it in different scenarios has been really interesting, various kind of use cases, and that has been a really good learning experience for us.
Thanks so much, Harini. So I think we are on time, and this brings us to the close of today's panel discussion. Thanks a lot, Neha, Pranav, Harini, and Rishabh for sharing your journey, your experiences of building your organizations. I think this is a growing trend today. So your experiences will help a lot of new startups and organizations who are going in the same directions as each of you did. So with that, thanks a lot once again, and I would hope to talk to you all of soon.
Oh wow, that was an engaging panel, Mohit. I love learning about open source and open core. By the way, I picked up a new hobby and I wanted to show you my new camera to click the beautiful Bangalore rains. What are you up to with that snorkel?
It is so hot here in Delhi, Dhana. I'm just trying to use the power of manifestation to feel that I'm at a beach and trying to get rid of this hot summer.
Well, viewers, please tweet your favorite pastimes in between coding marathons or work breaks. Also, please join the discussions and GitHub subject matter experts who will be engaging during our sessions. Please keep the tweets coming. I believe we have one coming up now.
Absolutely.
Well, looks like Kaushik Kandaka too is saying, at GitHub India, you should put a link to the song on open source plate. We will. We were grooving to it too, Kaushik. Thank you. Let's see the next tweet.
The next one is from Rohit P. Shirke. Rohit says, amazing intro by Nandan Nilekani about how India is leading its way in software market and contribution of FOSS of OSS in huge success stories of platforms like UPI, hashtag GitHub Constellation, GitHub. Yeah, that's great. So motivating it was to hear Nandan talk about all the stories.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Even I'm in Kormangala where Nandan lives, and you know what? It's absolutely right. Even the coconut sellers, the vegetable vendors, everyone uses UPI, and it's amazing and blessed to not carry cash around. By the way, Mohit, I believe we have a super interesting conversation lined up next.
We are super pleased to welcome Anna Roy, Senior Advisor at Niti Aayog, to join us today for a fireside chat with Dheeraj Gyani from GitHub. And the topic is how code is building India. So Dheeraj and Anna, over to you both.
Thank you, Dhanashri and Mohit, and good morning, viewers. My name is Dheeraj Gyani, and I lead the education and government engagement for GitHub. And today I have pleasure of hosting this discussion on code is building India. We heard this morning on how software is made in India. And in true sense, this is driven by the Indian developers, all of you. And no surprises that India is the leader when it comes to adoption of AI, also in contributing to AI-related code on GitHub globally. And it's such an honor to have Miss Anna Roy, who's playing a crucial role in enabling all this for our country. Ms. Roy is an Indian Economic Services Officer and has held multiple roles in the government. Currently with Niti Aayog, she leads the vertical dealing with data management and frontier technologies. I have closely followed her work in building the national strategy on artificial intelligence, blockchain, and many other tech-led initiatives in the government. In fact, last Friday, I witnessed the launch of National Data Analytics Platform, which will facilitate access to huge repositories of published government data. And she has been leading that initiative as well. Ms. Roy also heads the Women Entrepreneurship Platform at Niti Aayog that works towards developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem for women. Welcome, Ms. Roy. Niti Aayog is India's premier think tank, helping create a shared vision for our country. In that aspect, how important is technology strategy and how does Niti Aayog think about it for India?
Thank you, Dheeraj. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers who have given me this opportunity to address a community which I feel is really driving the change today. And Niti is all about transformation. So very happy to be here. You spoke about the strategy on technology. Niti, as the name suggests, is not an organization which is too much into the current implementation. For that, we have relevant administrative ministries, but Niti is the premier think tank which is supposed to kind of give a vision, a long-term, medium-term, and a proposed road ahead on how various aspects need to be dealt with, what needs to be done to achieve that vision. So in that case, strategy becomes very important, and that is at the core of Niti's function. If we just focus on technology per se, I will come to the other domain areas. Specific technology, how do we kind of promote development of technology? How do we promote adoption of technology? What are the technology spheres that we should look at? Then I take you back to 2018, when we came out with the National Strategy on Artificial Intelligence. In several ways, that really led the path of starting a dialogue on the adoption, promotion, and building an ecosystem for development of technology in the country in a very, very cohesive manner. I won't say it's not as if nothing was happening in before that, but from 2018 onwards, it has been happening in a more cohesive and collaborative fashion, where we have identified various players and who are working together to develop a strategy where Niti plays a very critical role since it provides a platform for all stakeholders, including the government, research, academia, industry, to all come together and in a very collaborative and consultative manner come out with a strategy. So starting from the AI strategy, you will see Niti lead the way in other areas, whether it is clean energy, whether it is, the clean mobility, when you talk about EVs. So Niti has been driving the entire strategy space where adoption and promotion of technology in the country is, involved.
That's so true, ma'am. In fact, I have met so many people who have been benefited out of the great work coming out of Niti Aayog, especially the green energy, what we talked today, and even the national strategy on AI. I was with my previous organization and we have seen tremendous work happening on the ground because of that policy. So thank you for that. I think I've been a big fan of your work around inclusion and especially tech inclusion. And that's even the objectives of the government today that we see. Digital and tech inclusion is big on agenda. So how do you ensure an inclusive tech policy framework and its rollout?
So I will again take you back to 2018. And the cornerstone of the strategy was really inclusion. How do we ensure that we don't have islands of excellence in a huge area of where not much is happening? So inclusivity and democratizing democratizing access to infrastructure was one of the key things which we focused on. And since 2018, we have been addressing it in different fashion. We also were required to do it because that was also the mandate given by the government, and in all fora, whether it is our Honorable Prime Minister or any of the other, representatives of the government, it is again and again stressed that inclusivity, no matter what we are doing, needs to be stressed. So I will just give a few examples in that area. First of all, we started from 2014 to really leverage the India Stack, and we came to the India Stack experience and India Stack UPI and various other initiatives that followed that particular initiative has really revolutionized the financial sector in a big way. So we started off with payment, and then we have this wonderful consent-based data sharing framework, which was brought out, essentially developed by iSpirit, where NITI collaborated in launching the paper. So that is the second phase, which I will say really marked the progression towards inclusivity, the DAPA framework. And the framework was really very proactively adopted by our regulators, also with RBI coming out with the guidelines for a regulatory sandbox where AA could be really evolved, as well as giving licenses to several companies to be the consent managers. So I think that I will mark as the second most important aspect. The third is really developing the digital goods. So one of the important platforms which we played a very big role in conceptualizing, giving a vision, and then incubating, and then handing it over to an implementing authority is really the ULIP platform. Now, what does ULIP do? ULIP is also translating what happened in India Stack in the financial sector. So we have a three-layered approach where we have integration, data integration at the bottom. Then in the middle, we will have a data governance and data exchange protocols. And on the top is the consumer interface. So what does it really do? It provides access to data to everybody. So you don't have to be a deep pocket. You don't have to be a big company to have access to data and develop various tools to address the various issues in the logistics space. You can be a startup, you can be a small time, company, and you can address the last mile problems of the logistics sector by leveraging ULIP. So ULIP has come a long way. And in this year's budget, Honorable Finance Minister, recognizing how ULIP is revolutionizing the the logistics space and kind of aligned with the Gati Shakti initiative of the government, she announced that a similar platform should be built for passenger travel. The next thing so this is the public digital, platform. Now, two other initiatives which we have driven from NITI is one is the National Data Analytic Portal, which you yourself mentioned at the beginning, which was launched on the 13th, and that is addressing the last mile access to data. Now, all the data, as it is said in various promotional videos, India is very data rich today, thanks to the digital, push given by the government and very, very successful Digital India movement. But all this terabytes of data, which comes from surveys, which comes from various other sources, the use is limited because that last mile was not being addressed. So NDAP is addressing that. So now, as a journalist, they can go to NDAP and have easy access. A researcher can go, a student can go on NDAP and have easy access. And this is in line with government's philosophy of providing easy access to data and democratizing access to data. And last but not the least is the Women Entrepreneurship Platform, which we have developed within NITI. And it's an aggregator platform which really, is providing seamless access to all initiatives which are there in the ecosystem, which benefits the women entrepreneurial ecosystem in a single window kind of a thing. And when I say single window, It is not as if you will be taken to some other platform. It provides access to initiatives through a smart search and all kinds of initiatives, whether by the government, private, corporate, any other international body, at the click of a button. With smart search, with various other, features which are there on the platform. Thank you.
Awesome. I think there's so much wonderful work happening at the government level today. And ma'am, on the other hand, we have thousands of developers listening to you right now on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter, across multiple channels. How do you look at democratizing data and get help of all the passionate developers that we have, because they really want to contribute to nation building? And not only developers, we have a lot of tech providers also. So how do you get them to support the program, support your the initiatives that you are running?
So, since GitHub has done such a wonderful job in getting the developer community, collaborate and kind of develop this open source tool. So both WEP and NDAP are really digital platforms. I would like to restrict my comments to these two platforms because I am personally involved in it. So I will use this, your program as a call for action to all the developer community to come and join hands with us to help us develop it. Now, whether it is NDAP, in NDAP also, we are trying to see how new tools can be uploaded. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but of course, it is being developed by by one company which is under contract. So we have to kind of be in quote unquote within the frames of that contract, which Niti Aayog signed with the tech developer. But that has not stopped us from reaching out to other companies. And today we are in talks with several companies who want to integrate their tools with NDAP so that the NDAP engine really gets energized. We provide more features by this integration. And though the public launch only happened, this week on Friday, these are very early days, but I think your program is very, very timely for us. And we would also use our social media to reach out to this community, but I would request you also to reach out to the community to come and, discuss with us how they can collaborate with NDAP. The second platform, which is more open source, I would say, compared to NDAP, because NDAP is big data and we have to be a bit, circumspect about the quality of data which is being uploaded, various other tools. A lot of things go into it. But the WEP is something where we are now at a very point of inflection, where we are trying to see, take it to the next level. Whatever happened in the past, let me tell you, the first WEP platform was developed by the NITI interns. And over time, various partners have joined hands to develop various modules. Say Flipkart developed the community page, and we looked towards other people to come and develop individual modules. Now we are trying to, kind of take stock of what we have and whether we are on the right path, and see how our next journey, next phase of this journey should evolve. So we are in that design thinking phase, and WEP presents another, very, very important platform for developers to come forward, use the platform, not only use, but also work with us to develop specific modules, add on to it, and work with us in different, aspects. So that, of course, we are open to have a dialogue with the developer community and see how we can evolve this platform to become really a world leader in an aggregator kind of a sense.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that's a great call for action for all of us, all the developers listening to you, all the tech providers. I think that's a wonderful opportunity to really contribute back to our nation. So I think some great call to action and things to do at all our end. Thank you. I want to stay on the developer topic. And I think, we have seen that India's leadership in tech is kudos to the developer, the individual developers, the mind that we have in India and who are doing some awesome work. The other area where India really leads is open source software development. So your thoughts around how can Indian developers and open source software development really accelerate the Digital India mission?
So, Digital India mission is all about inclusivity. And as Mr. Kant, who is the CEO of Niti Aayog, often says, we need to have a system which allows 1,000 flowers bloom. So we do not want to be restrictive. We want to have a system which allows people to kind of come up with solution. Atal Innovation Mission is one such initiative of Niti Aayog, which really promotes this kind of an initiative where the developer community, by participating in their challenges, can kind of contribute to nation building. And as our Prime Minister also keeps on saying, do not adopt tech for just the sake of tech. Use tech as the vehicle for problem solving. And for that, to achieve that, organizations like Niti Aayog is there. What kind of help can be provided? Because government sees itself in the role of being an enabler, a catalyst, and government, it has been moving away from the business development phase in various sectors. And even in tech space, government wants to kind of, be the enabler, be the facilitator, and allow this huge demographic dividend and the huge potential which we have in this country to take this mission forward. So this is again a space where a lot of collaboration is required. Where you must realize we are not really the custodian of all kind of we don't have all the wisdom, and we look towards the developer community, we look towards academia, we look towards industry to come up with suggestions. We will have an open mind, and how to take this forward is something that I assure you that we will be there to work with you. But it can't be said that, okay, government should bring out ABC. It has to be from both sides. So in case you do not, find us as a good collaborator at that stage, you can say, look, I did ABC and I did not get a response. So government is providing platforms, whether it is the Atal Innovation Mission, whether it is the NDAP, where we have, have been kind of doing challenges, and going forward, we plan to do several such hackathons and other challenges, whether it is ULIP, where NICTC has already done a challenge, and we have several winners. So I would say that the community also needs to be responsible to come up and proactively work with the government.
Absolutely true. I'll switch gears, and I want to probably ask you the last question. We are short of time, but that's your area of your passion, and you lead the women entrepreneurship ecosystem at Niti Aayog. We would love to hear more about that, the work that's happening, and what can we do to support that.
Absolutely. So, it was an idea, and how I see my work is to come up with solutions for dealing with specific problems. So when we came up with the vision of NDAP, the problem was, how do we ensure that we don't need a huge amount of work to draw insights from certain data sets. It's not as if we are creating this data. We are not creating this data. All that we are doing is identifying the use cases of that data. So our starting point on NDAP is first identifying the use cases. Otherwise, all this data being there is just lying there. So we have started that from the other way around. We first identify the use case, then we identify the data set, then we look for the data and put it in a schema. And so going forward for that use case, and we keep on updating data. So that use case gets solved on the fly. So you can come on the platform and use the features of the platform to solve that one particular use case. That's a journey. Today we have around, I think, 165 or 65. I'm not very sure, but these many use cases. And it is just the beginning. Similarly, the second problem that we encountered was how to overcome the information asymmetry that exists in the entrepreneurial ecosystem for women. In 2017, in the Global Entrepreneurship Summit, at the close of the summit, Mr. Khan said that in his interaction with all the women entrepreneurs, he realized that there is a lot of lack of information. And he announced setting up of a women entrepreneurship cell. And he made me in charge of that. Now, it was all very new for me. When I started working on the subject, I realized there are so many cells, so many initiatives, so many programs that we do not really need another cell for dealing with this issue. So we came up with the idea of a platform, which will be the aggregator platform, which will showcase all these initiatives at one place. Now, that does not mean we make it a data dump, because all this information is out there. You just have to Google, you just have to YouTube. So we wanted to be better than that. Now, if a Facebook can, do a lot of analysis and give you a kind of insights based on various searches, etc., that users are doing, why can't we do it? So here is this platform where our vision is that we will collate all the information out there about schemes, initiatives by all agencies. And we have already completed the work for central government schemes, for state government schemes, and several FIs. Second comes, the role of technology, where we will use AI ML kind of a thing for smart matchmaking. Third, a smart engine which allows people to access that information seamlessly. Fourth, have as little interface, human interface as possible, so that through technology we are able to, reach out to a large audience. Next, have Indic language content, as well as various other, availability of this WEP on various devices to reach out to the community pan-India, and not be constrained that only you have to, only through web-based you can do it. So whether a chatbot, whether a app, so all this is our vision, because, it is a process. And next, have, things like mentoring, compliance, funding. For all this, do a baseline study, do a gap analysis, and then look for modules which are outcome oriented. So you define the outcome, and then you develop the various interventions. And in addition to all that, work with partners on the ground. We don't want to duplicate anything. We just want to amplify, evangelize all the wonderful work which is being done, but in silos, in small pockets, to collaborate and scale up in the process. And have an offline module also, because of last 2 years, because of the pandemic, our offline work got a bit derailed. We hope to get back in the offline space as well, and look towards everybody to, join hands. So here the role of developers come. They need to go on the platform, and they need to come to us and say, look, this is what is missing. This is what you need to do. So I have explained the vision. Now the thing is, do WEP 2.0. Till now it was more ad hoc. Now we have got a lot of interest, because the critical mass is there on the platform. Going forward, I hope we will have a lot of action happening on the platform.
This is extremely inspiring, ma'am. And especially, I think, when we see technology playing a role and creating that impact on large initiatives which are meant for community, for society upliftment, I think that's truly awesome and very, very inspiring. Thank you so much, ma'am, for spending your time with us today. I think there is a lot for for me, I'm taking back from this discussion, and there's a lot for everybody else who's listening to you to come and contribute back to our nation building. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing from a lot of your participants who perhaps are listening to me through this webinar. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll give back to the hosts.
Wow, what a great opportunity and open invitation to all developers for contributing to nation building. No doubt this is the best time to be a software developer in India. What do you think, Dhana?
Of course, Mohit, some of the best and globally renowned projects from the country have come from the public sector, be it Aadhaar or UPI. And as rightly called by Anna, there is so much opportunity ahead of us. So we all need to do is step up. By the way, cool look, Mohit.
I'm just trying to match our cool Indian developer community and the coolest projects that they are contributing to. Ah, you definitely are a Marvel fan, Dhana, are you?
What gave it away?
So, what's your favorite character?
Well, it has to be Spider-Man. Do you know that OSS projects and libraries on GitHub are being used by some of the largest entertainment houses across the world to create movies and magic? And on that note, viewers, please tweet us your coolest open source projects from India or your favorite superhero. We would love to hear them.
We have Twitter abuzz with all the awesome comments from our viewers. Let's take a few of them right here, Dhana. We got a tweet from Rohan to tweet. Rohan says, great to hear stories from the trenches from companies creating products using open source. Pranav, Neha, Harini, and Rushabh. That's a shout out to our panelists. And here is one, engaging anchors too. Thank you so much. Looking forward to more such tweets.
Oh, looks like Faisam4765 says there's a new India being built today and we are coding to make it that way. What a catchy line from GitHub promo song. Oh, yes, right? We love that too. Thank you, folks, and please keep the tweets coming. Please engage with us on discussions as well.
So what's next, Dhana? What's lined up now?
Oh, now we have to get a little serious, Mohit. Do you know how important security is in today's world, right? Coming up, our regional sales specialist for advanced security at GitHub, Amol Raina, moderates a panel on securing software applications at their source. Stay tuned.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our panel discussion today, which is on DevSecOps, the transformation. And my name is Amol Raina, and I'm going to be the moderator today. And I am part of the GitHub Advanced Security team for Asia Pacific. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome the panelists today for us. Maybe I could start with introducing the panelist. So today we have Mr. Satish Vibhashi. Satish comes from Inmobi and is the Chief Information Security Officer. Satish has been working in cybersecurity and risk domain for almost 30 years. So that's a very good and rich experience that he brings us today, and we look forward to getting his thoughts and ideas. The second panelist that we have today is Commander Praveen Kumar. So Praveen is Chief Information Security Officer with Z. And Praveen has recently, he's a naval veteran and has recently quit Navy and come to CV Street. Praveen also brings with him almost 20 years of rich experience in cybersecurity and other warfare. So welcome, Praveen. We also have Abhaya Vidya with us today. Abhaya joins us from Infosys. Abhaya is the Group Manager, Information Security with Infosys, and also brings close to 20 years of experience on cybersecurity and risk. Last but not the least, we also have Sagar today with us. Sagar Narasimha is the Chief Information Security Officer of Amagi Media, and again brings almost 17 years of experience in cybersecurity risk and consulting. So welcome all the panelists, and I'm great to have you on board, and look forward to talking to you and getting your thoughts today on DevSecOps primarily, which is going to be the topic for discussion today. Just to start and build a context, I have been fortunate to be part or associated with cybersecurity and application security industry for almost 2 decades now. And I have gone through the transformation that DevSecOps took, and I've seen that transformation in many organizations. From the days when application security was just about a penetration testing or a dynamic testing, to today a full-blown DevSecOps, implementation where you have penetration testings, you have SAST, you have composition analysis, you have automation, you have people talking about, how do we shift security left? So we've really come a very long way. And I think many reasons to the same. If you talk about what have been the real drivers, I think primarily the drivers have been in terms of data breaches are on rise. So 60% of successful breaches that happen today actually attack your application layer. And it's really, really very, very important. If applications are your most vulnerable areas, then you'd have to take care of your applications and make sure that you secure the weakest link. I think also in terms of compliances, 27001, GDPR, CERT, AutoSAR, RBI guidelines, I think regulations and compliances have been becoming very, very stringent in the last 5 years. And these stringent regulations and guidelines, enforce organizations to look at application security very, very seriously and to look at a DevSecOps motion. I think we recently went through a very bad patch of COVID. But what COVID has really shown us is organizations looking to now digitalize, every business, if they had to be successful and they had to run, they really had to, become digital. They had to go on web applications or mobile applications. So a lot of application development started happening. And with a lot of code being written, there came in the probability of any kind of vulnerability getting introduced. So that again has really put the bar high in terms of looking, CISOs and even the development teams looking at trying to make sure that these applications are secure. So that's very, very important. I think few other areas are number of releases. I remember talking to a few development teams, 5-6 years back. I think the number of releases we saw per year generally used to be 2, 3, or maximum 4. But now if you talk to development teams, the kind of releases or the number of releases that are happening today are somewhere like one in a week or probably 100 in a year. So if you have so much of code being written and getting attached to a particular application, the probability of a vulnerability or an issue getting introduced goes up that much. So again, brings in the need for use of application security or automating the application security. I think open source is being used a lot these days. I think almost 70 to 80% of the code that forms composition of any software today generally is open source. While open source is the way to go ahead, but again, open source comes in with its own challenges and its own issues. So I think that's again something which we need to really look at very, very seriously. So these are few drivers that probably we have seen, which have really pushed the transformation in terms of DevSecOps and why organizations today are getting very, very serious about application security and overall implementing a true DevSecOps initiative in their organization. So with that, I would want to start off with asking few questions to the panelists and understanding and knowing their thoughts on what's happening. So maybe I'll go with Satish first. So Satish, you've been with InMobi for some time now, and InMobi is primarily into mobile advertising. So I'm sure you've gone through a DevSecOps transformation journey. So maybe if you could just give us some idea on how was your DevSecOps journey, and what were the challenges that you really faced in implementing DevSecOps in your organization?
Sure, Amol. First of all, thanks for having me here. So, in fact, I think you touched upon most of the areas. In fact, today, no doubt, application security is one of the biggest driver, especially in Mobi being a tech-focused company, and a lot of code being written and a lot of innovation. In fact, I think that drives the whole business, pure tech-focused, of course, cloud-focused. And so while InMobi was around in a DevOps journey, but I think DevSecOps, in fact, I'm sure I think DevSecOps has evolved over a period of time. In fact, just to see how the overall, because fundamentally, security was always like, it was, if I can use the word, security was like a retrofitting into the overall build cycle. But I think that's where the whole DevSecOps emerged, right? If you look at emerged as an approach, in fact, overall approach, how we can address security concerns at an early stage and in the overall the build, and of course the whole the CI/CD pipeline. So while absolutely, while the speed is one of the key driver, but again, CISOs are, so while the tech organizations understand the need for security, but in the whole agility mode, right? Many times, in fact, teams do not understand or realize. So I think it's a lot of mind shift. It's a lot of the change in approach, and it's all about how do we incorporate the whole security in the overall development life cycle. So while there are challenges, but I call it DevSecOps is a journey, and of course we are in the journey, and of course it takes time to mature. So that's what I just want to start with my opening comments.
Yeah, thanks, Satish. I think you really hit the nail. It's a paradigm shift. It's a mind shift that probably organizations have to really do. So I completely agree with you on that. Changing the mindset of developers who really resist, use of application security, because that's a burden for them as that they feel. But yeah, shifting that mindset and getting them onboarded and trying to communicate to them that yes, this is a must and this is very important, is I think that's the real transformation that we are looking at. Thanks, Satish. So again, I'm sure. I'm not sure if how relevant it is in Navy, but just to get an idea from you in terms of how generally when you see engineering teams and security teams, you see a lot of friction as we were discussing and understanding. So how do you see bridging these gaps with respect to getting both the teams, engineering and security teams, together? So do you see any ways, how do you bridge these gaps between the two teams? Praveen.
Yes, Amol. Okay, you rightly brought out that the journey of application security per se over the last 20 years has changed. You are the one who probably has been through this journey for the longest period of time. Let's take a step backwards. Traditionally, in the software development life cycle, developers used to develop code, testers used to test the code. Then I would say somewhere in the middle of early 2000s, in fact, we security folks stepped in and said, okay, let's start looking at security. We started talking vulnerabilities. Then much later came the concept of DevSecOps, wherein we were trying to integrate with the developers, whereas before this, we were trying to integrate with the testing folks. The rationale behind this is very clear. The cost of fixing vulnerabilities at the beginning of any software development life cycle is much lesser than the cost of fixing the vulnerabilities at a later stage. I personally feel it is easier said than done. The reason being the core expertise of a developer is to build functionalities, right? They are largely looking at functional requirements of the applications. They are running against time to be able to build the applications as per the requirements of the customers. Suddenly, the AppSec team jumping into and saying, hey, look, these are the security vulnerabilities you need to look into, more often than not, for a developer, this is Greek and Latin. They don't really understand how these vulnerabilities would affect in the longer period of time. Now, how do we address this problem, or how to reduce this friction is what you actually brought out, right? We at Z are looking at a three-pronged strategy: tools, technology, and processes. Get the right set of tools which are easy to use, make them available to the developer so that vulnerabilities are highlighted at a much earlier stage. One of the examples is the integration of GitHub Advanced Security, which we have recently undertaken. Second, and most importantly, is train and sensitize the developers and equip them to be able to address the issues before the code is checked in. And finally, and most importantly, is to have the process and guidelines very clearly defined. We at Z have taken one more step ahead. Actually, we operate in pods. What do we mean by a pod is, each pod is responsible to develop one or a set of functions of the overall project. We have a team of product managers, development teams, UI UX experts, data scientists, as well as cybersecurity specialists as part of these pods. So in simple words, this pod is some sort of a self-sustained, fully equipped to architect, design, develop, deploy any given functionality. Talking from the security perspective, in simple words, security is built as part of the design rather than it being an afterthought. In other words, what we are trying to build at Z is a relationship between the security and the development team. Largely in most of the organization is transactional, whereas in my organization, where we are grouped as pods, it is a holistic kind of a relationship. That's what we have seen in the last 3 to 4 months, is we have been able to reduce that so-called friction between the development team and the security team to a large extent.
I think you hit the nail. It's the relationship. It's basically the collaboration between the two teams. How to get them together to make them work. But empowering the developers, training them, guiding them on thoughts. So perfect. Thanks a lot on that. So Abhaya, moving on to you. You've been with Infosys for some time now. You've been managing their DevSecOps, and I'm sure I know you for the last 5 years, and I've seen the DevSecOps transformation that has gone through in Infosys. So maybe what, according to you, is the role of automation in application security? Because if you see today, a lot of organizations still rely a lot on manual, activities when it comes to application security. And did you see any challenges with respect to transitioning from a manual way of doing application security to automating this entire process of application security?
Hi, everyone. Having me here, Amol. So when it comes to the challenges, before challenges, probably I'll talk about the application security automation itself. Like you said, the post-pandemic work from home scenario forced us to concentrate more on applications, because application is the backbone at Infosys. It's not only about the applications that Infoscions use, it's also about the deliverables that we give to our clients. And we had to ensure that all these applications, the internal ones and the deliverables that we give to our clients, they are all secure. And the post-pandemic scenario taught us that we need to look at these applications for every sprint. The sprints were probably 2 weeks apart. And to go at that scale, to perform assessments at that scale, was really difficult if we were in a manual assessment mode. And we had to move into an automated assessment mode. And when we are talking about automated assessment, it's not only one thing. It's about SAST, DAST, IAST. Now, so there were so many assessments that we had to do, and automation was the only way to go. And when we talk about automation, we were not only talking about shift left, we were talking about shift everywhere, wherever it is, the complete phase of the the software lifecycle management. We had to be everywhere to ensure that the security of our applications are managed. And for that, rather than talking about challenges, I would rather talk about the focus areas that we looked at. One was, of course, the inventory. because we wanted to look at the complete inventory of applications. We had hundreds and hundreds of applications in the ecosystem that we had to bring it all together. And the second thing was the technology focus. So Infosys as such, we had multiple technologies. We have multiple technologies that we are working on. And the coverage technology that can cover everything end to end is also something that was challenging. So we had to look at multiple things which can cover that. So these two predominantly was our focus area. And the third thing is how the detection part of it and the remediation part, these two are in line with each other. So detection does not have any use if the remediation is also at the same level of it. And to enable the developers to be able to remediate quickly so that they are able to bring their code to market at a faster rate, that was our focus area as well. So these were some of the focus areas that we focused on for automating our application security related aspects.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is the remediation rate and not detection, because if you may have the best of technologies and you may identify thousands of vulnerabilities, but if they're not fixed before you move your application into production, it's basically no use. In fact, the industry trend today is that in the first 1 week of identifying these vulnerabilities, only 15% of these vulnerabilities get fixed, and that number goes up to around 45% in the next 3 months. So we're looking for a solution which can help organizations, not detect but remediate. I think that's a very, very critical thing to look at. Thanks, Abhaya. So moving on to Sagar. Sagar, I think as an organization, as a CISO or a security team, I think very, very important aspect is security governance. To look at the health of applications in your organization. So different organizations take different routes. There are governance tools. There are multiple tools that are developed in-house. So what are you doing in your organization today to really look at a governance of your applications, or to look at the health of your applications? How do you monitor all this?
Hey, Amol, thanks for having me here. And it's a pleasure to be here. So, to answer your question, basically, Amagi is an extremely dynamic and an extremely agile company. And we are extremely business driven in the sense that as long as features are working, it's good to go. So, which means we have a versatile set of tools, different platforms, a diverse set of open source tools that we consume, and our developers writing in all possible languages, which effectively means that we, from a security standpoint and a security tool standpoint, we are generating a lot of vulnerabilities, alerts, observations, and findings. And as these happen across different tools, there are different severity categories. There are different parameters based on which each tool categorizes the severity across a particular piece of code or an application. So there are two ways we are trying to govern this. One, while we are exploring a standard industry standard tool which could actually aggregate all of these observations and standardize them across the organization's risk management framework, while we are still doing that, we are also trying to automate how these findings are being funneled into one particular dashboard, so that we have a single pane of glass to be able to demonstrate to the leadership and to the management on what is the security posture of each of our products and applications. Meanwhile, VAPT, as usual, is always one of the most reliable sources of our capability in terms of identifying the security posture of each product. So just before the product goes live, or periodically, we make sure that there's a VAPT run on every product to ensure that its security posture is compliant to Amagi standards.
I agree with you, Sagar, on that. Thanks for giving us that idea on how do you funnel and get everything on a single dashboard to present it to the top management. Because if they are satisfied, your applications are secure, you get more budgets. So moving on to Satish now. Satish, maybe as we're talking about DevSecOps, and if you talk about DevSecOps, what comes in our mind is shifting security left, moving. I think Praveen spoke about it, but moving, security from the CISO team to the developers and helping developers identify vulnerabilities in their workflows, in their day-to-day, job when they're writing the code. So what are your thoughts on the same, and are you seeing have you implemented the same in your organization, and are you seeing some impact on the developer productivity per se by shifting security left?
Yes, Amol. See, I think this has been always a thought or a discussion. Like, it's important to shift left because that's where at an early stage you should start thinking security. And coming back to developers, I think a lot of training, in fact, education needs to be done because, as I think Praveen and other panelists said, fundamentally developers are there to write code. Their focus is on functionality, not on security. So I think that's where, while it is not that they don't understand, but then, as you said rightly, the productivity piece comes in. They may feel that, okay, this is one more additional burden for me. Or I think that's where the tools, I think the tool set, the new, if I can say, the new whole evolution happened, where probably I call it as build time checks or in the ID itself, right? If at all there are tools, you have the ability to go and see that while the developer writes the code there itself, imagine now, okay, the first thing, imagine the education is done and the developer is aware of what exactly how you need to ensure that you need to write secure code. I think that's where I think most of the organizations are putting efforts in trying to see how they can take security at a much early stage. Of course, it right from the early design board, if I can say, at the design stage, at the drawing board itself. I'm sure traditionally also we used to talk about threat modeling, and that still exists. But coming from the developer perspective, I think it's very important to do a lot of training, awareness, education. It's not the standard generic education, very focused, in fact, training for the developer, just to make him aware that why it's important for him to write safe and secure code. That is one sort of thing. And second, provide the right tool set, of course, because that's where life is going to be much more easier for the developer so that he understands. And then, of course, the next, as part of the build checks, imagine you have like I think, as I said in the early, it's a journey, and definitely a lot of organizations are going through this journey, and it takes time to mature. But yes, I think definitely it is really happening, and yeah, that's what I wanted to just talk about.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's a lot of transformation happening, and I completely I'm with you on that. Quickly moving on to Praveen. Praveen, again, I would need your quick thoughts on a lot of open source is being used today by developers, and I said this is that's a way of life. But how are you managing open source issues, security risks? Because it's a very, very important. If 70% of your code is open source, you need to be very, very clear on how do you manage it. So what are you doing in your organization to manage open source risks?
Thanks, Amol. Yeah, open source risks have been talked about in various forums, and I've heard a lot of people talking about it as a risk. But as you rightly said, it is there to. There's no two ways about it. With passing years, the amount of open source code which will be part of applications is only going to increase. But what is the problem with the open source code? Let's talk about that. Largely speaking, the nature of open source model is that open source projects make their code available to everyone, which means that open source community can flag potential exploits they find in the code and give open source project managers time to fix the issue. Sounds great, right? As a security practitioner, there are a whole bunch of people who are looking at security of that part of code. So largely, where is the problem? I feel the problem is largely about how we are managing the open source code. The problem is not with the open source code, but how we are managing it. Whenever somebody talks about open source code, it reminds me of that famous 2017 Equifax breach. All of us know, right? There were around 140 million personal data which was exposed, and there was a huge hue and cry about that particular incident. And most of us know that was actually related to open source code. And that's where people started believing that the problem is with the open source code. But the problem inherently was not in the open source code. It's about how the open source code was managed by Equifax in those days. And all of us know that the moment a vulnerability is flagged in an open source repository and it gets remediated, it gets published publicly on National Vulnerability Database, which means that there's a database available for the hackers to immediately, get their hands on and try and find out who are those organizations who have not fixed that vulnerability. So, as I said, the problem is not with the open source code. It is about how we manage it. Our patch cycles, the way we keep, how we account the open source software in our applications. This is where we need to, mature, and having an inventory, clearly flagging those parts of open source code which have, which have been abandoned. A huge part of open source codes are not maintained throughout the life cycle. There always comes a period of time once the support system for that open source repository is not available anymore. So which means each of us as CISOs have to take special care to ensure that we have a complete repository or a list of open source code which are there as part of our application. What is the status of each of those open source repositories? And also ensure another major issue which I've seen a few more problems with open source is that a lot of people, because of the inherent policies of the organization, tend to copy and paste the open source libraries instead of importing it as a library and having a repository of that. We tend to copy and paste it, which means there is no record of that open source software which has been used in the code. So largely speaking, proliferation of open source components is there to stay. There is no two ways about it. What we need to probably do is to have policies and procedures to support and manage them efficiently.
Thanks, Praveen. That was amazing. I would have loved to continue this discussion. This was so knowledgeable, and learned so much about what organizations today are doing across. But unfortunately, we have our time has come to end, and I would like to, before finishing, I would like to again thank you all for taking out time and joining us for this discussion on DevSecOps. And I'm sure all the viewers would make good use of this knowledge and would benefit from it. Thanks again, everybody, and thanks for joining us.
Wow, thanks to all the speakers from Z, InMobi, Amagi, and Infosys for their insightful comments. And thanks to all the wisdom from all our earlier panelists as well. All of you watching us right now, why don't you tell us your favorite takeaway from the session so far?
That's a great thought, Dhana. What's your take?
Well, I have so many examples in my own life about how code is empowering us, Mohit. It was amazing to see how quickly all the kids around us just took to online tools for school and to hang out with their friends. I just did a trip recently, and you could just translate the signboards and the menu cards using your phone. Oh, and I have a nice one. Closer home, I just set up my mom's phone to accept voice commands, and now she talks to her phone in Hindi to make phone calls. She loves it.
I love all those stories, Dhana. And by the way, I see that Central Perk Cafe on your t-shirt. Friends, it's my go-to show. I have something interesting for you. Check this out.
Hey, is that Ross's monkey?
Yeah, that's Marcel.
That's super cool indeed. Hey, and I see Ted Lasso on your t-shirt, Mohit. I love Ted.
So what's your favorite quote from the show, Dhana?
I think it would have to be, if that's a joke, I love it. If not, can't wait to unpack that with you later.
That's contextual too.
Looks like we have another tweet coming up, Mohit.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, looks like Cali Cool Dude is tweeting hashtag GitHub Constellation. Open source and community is the key to code is building India initiative, from scaling the project to the product in the form of a startup is the journey that GitHub as a platform providing GitHub India. Yeah, that's true. We all would love for you to use the platform as well and tweet and engage with us on GitHub discussions. What do we have next, Mohit?
It's been a great day, and we are at our last panel discussion on building talent and skills for creating new India. This panel discussion will be moderated by Dheeraj Gyani, who is the Director of Government and Education Engagements here at GitHub. So, with no further ado, Dheeraj, take it away.
Thank you, Mohit and Dhanashri. Really delighted to be here for the next 30 minutes with a really awesome panel of experts and thought leaders in their respective space. The topic that we are discussing today is building talent and skills for coding the new India. There's no doubt that India is the tech capital of the world, and fueling this leadership is our brain power and human talent. The sector is not only generating huge employment, but is also adding thousands of successful entrepreneurs every single day. It's no wonder that the share of digital technology investments into India will be 60% in 2025 from just 10% what it was in 2014. So while we have a robust and flourishing tech sector, but our assets could be our biggest risks as well. A recent study reports that 63% Indian companies have shortage of talent primarily in IT and engineering services. We have seen many tech companies moving or starting to set up centers in other countries as well. And at this point, I want to turn to our experts for their thoughts. I welcome all of you, but my first question is to Amit Ranjan, who co-founded SlideShare in 2006, was its COO till it was acquired by LinkedIn. And later Amit joined government's Digital India program and has been architecting some of the very impactful programs like DigiLocker, having huge impacts of millions of citizens. Welcome, Amit.
Thank you.
Amit, you wear multiple hats. You have founded companies, you are creating products, investing in a lot of companies right now that I know. So what are your thoughts about the talent demand and supply gap that we have? And what are you guiding startups to navigate this gap?
Right. So, the whole issue or problem of hiring the right people for your organization, whether it is a startup, whether it is a government, or whether it is a large corporation, that tends to have tremendous mind share in terms of your daily operational activities, and it kind of assumes even more importance in case of startups. And I remember way back, in my early days of SlideShare, one of the lessons that I learned was that startup founders are nothing but glorified recruiters. Right. I mean, so 50% of the job of any founder is just making sure that you can get the right talent into your organization, and you can train them, and you can actually work with them. So my advice always to startups or to young companies is to kind of whenever you are thinking about recruitment, whenever you are thinking about people, whenever you are thinking about talent, I think it is instructive to kind of broaden the horizon a little bit and not just think in terms of the recruitment or the hiring function, but to broaden it and to think of it as the people function, right? Henry Ford had this great saying almost 100 years back when he said that the most important asset in any organization is its people. And it is so surprising that the people do not show up on the balance sheet, right? So if you go by that saying, that the people function, the people asset is what really determines the future of any organization. And so you got to think of the talent problem as essentially a people problem, right? What you're trying to do is not just hire people, not just kind of get them into the organization, but what you're trying to do is to build the right culture. The culture that you have in your organization should kind of become like the talent magnet in the ecosystem that you are in. There'll be people who will be working in your organization. They'll be leaving the organization. They'll be going out. They'll be talking about it. Social media is great at amplifying some of these experiences and messages. People talk about their experiences on social media platforms. They write blogs. They post it. They tell their friends. So what you really want is to kind of at the foundational level focus on building the right culture in the organization so that the people who you attract, who you hire, essentially kind of amplify the message around about your company in the external world, and that in turn kind of builds some kind of a magnetic force in attracting the best people into the company. So once you do that, that is when you will be successful in getting a steady stream of the best people who will say, hey, I want to actually come and work in this organization, because it's not just a one-time problem, right? Recruitment is not just getting people one shot or at one time and then kind of moving ahead. Recruitment is a constant thing. There'll be people who will be coming, people would leave, you need to replenish them. As the organization grows, you'll see that startups essentially outgrow themselves. Startups start from a zero base. They go to 1, then they go to 5, then they go to 10, 50, 100. At every stage of the journey, you are essentially reliving and rebuilding the organization. You will need different kinds of skill sets. You will need different kinds of people. So the key thing here, and the message that I want to kind of leave the audience with, is that don't think of the talent or the recruitment function just at the hiring or at the recruitment level. Think of it at a broader people level. Think in terms that what does it take to build the right culture, and the culture that you build in your organization, the culture that you inculcate kind of should become like the magnet of attracting the best people towards your organization. And once you have a channel of those people coming in, then obviously you need to kind of set up the right systems and processes so that you can actually hire them, and then you can retain them and motivate them towards a long and a fulfilling career.
Wonderful. I think that was really insightful. Amit, thank you for your thoughts. Before going to the second question, I'm sure all of us have heard about AICTE. I have been personally involved with this institution for the last 15 years. And I must say today, AICTE is completely transformed. It's one of the most dynamic regulatory bodies in our country. I have seen the council members and everybody really open to partner with every stakeholder. They want to imbibe and share the best practices. And most importantly, they are creating the impact that we need for empowering one of the largest education sector in the world. And truly, the person who's subtly driving all this goodness and change is here with us today. Really honored to have you, Dr. Buddha Chandrasekhar. My heartiest welcome to you. Sir, I think we have talked a lot, and we often see these reports about the talent gap that we have in our country. So what is, and I know that government is taking this agenda very, very seriously. So if you could, shed some light on your thoughts on what actions government is taking at their level to really bridge this gap.
Yeah. Thank you, Dheeraj and all GitHub team members. I'm really delighted to be here. As you know, under Make in India initiative and perform incentive skills, India has received more than 375 billion US dollars as an investments in last 8 years, which means that India is going to be a global manufacturing hub. But empowering the 7 crore higher education students and recent graduates to access the industry aligned courses and skilling and upskilling is the key for Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this continuous upskilling process is going to be a driving force for making India the global digital talent hub. So interestingly, if you see the recent India skill reports 2019 and 20, it states one very important, interesting ingredient saying that only 46% of the students are found to be employable. I think we must accept that the old national education policy is more towards creating a worker than an innovator, researcher, or a startup or an entrepreneur. That's the reason we have very few entrepreneurs, and the startup culture is not grown because that's the way the old education policy was defined. But now the new education policy, with help of this new National Education Policy 2020, under the guidance of Honorable Minister Dharmendra Pradhanji, we are transforming the school level to a college level and a university into a technology and skill powerhouses by implementing interactive digital platforms. Because till now, the old education policy used to assume that every student is same and used to deliver the content, the similar content in a similar format to all the students. So as you know, every student is unique in nature. So for them, the way they learn is different. So what we did on the National Education Policy 2020, we started customizing, adopting and personalizing the educational system so that the student will adopt the content whichever he likes. Let's say I'm pretty good in learning through videos, so I will get the content more on the video side. And if you are pretty much interested on the research side, then you will get more research oriented material so that your understanding level on the subject will increase. And another main ingredient is for the National Education Policy 2020 is it has more focus on the skill-based education. And we want to eliminate or reduce the gap between the industry requirements and the academia. Because till now what is happening, the student comes out of the knowledge, out of the college with knowledge and without any practical experience of the industry. So he don't have any communication skills, he don't have a professional skills, he don't have a practical approach, he don't know what is happening in the industry. So the minute he jumps into the industry, he's not fitting into the industry requirements. So now from the 8th standard onwards, we started implementing the vocational courses. We started doing more hands-on training. We are doing a cross specialization, which is very, very important. And we are doing a mentoring sessions. We are giving more employable based opportunities like internship opportunities where the student works with more than 3 to 4 industries slash MNCs, when they are in college. And once he comes out of the college, if he wants to, he is interested, then he can do an apprenticeship opportunity where he can work with an industry. So we are doing all this, various initiatives in order to empower our students. And our intention is very, very simple. We want to give only the best of the best to the students, faculty, as well as to the industry. As we see that is using under Make in India process, we are getting investments not only on IT, BPM and KPOs, because that is where our strongest area. But now we are getting investments on auto components, automobiles, aviation, biotechnology, chemicals, food processing, leather, media, railways, roads and highways, renewable energy. What it really means is our opportunities for our students are huge. So that's where we have taken a pledge that we will prepare all our young minds for future. So we have identified 30 technologies, which can rule the world for next 15 to 20 years. So from artificial intelligence to IoT to blockchain to big data, automation, robotics, immersive AR, VR media, cloud computing, I'm just naming few, health technologies, wireless technologies, touch technologies, quantum computing, etc., edge computing, and working on new sensor based, proximity, location based. So we have identified such 30 technologies and started skilling and upskilling our students so that they are going to be industry ready. So these are the couple of initiatives. The beauty of the entire new education policy is that we have understood the requirements of the industry and fine-tuning our educational policies using advanced technologies in order to skill and upskill our students and faculty for their better future. So this is the way we are transforming, because till date we are teaching, but now we want to transform. Till date we are giving an education, we want to empower, we want to lead the entire thing using 5 pillars of national education policy, which call as access, quality, equity, affordability and accountability. So what happens is this will create the best of the best capacity building, the human resources, the entire globe wants. So that is where we are focusing, and this is the way we are fulfilling the requirement. And I'm sure now recently, if you see, a couple of companies started using our internships as well as apprenticeship platforms, and I'm happy to share that in last 1.5 years We are able to give more than 18 lakh internship opportunities, and few of them got recruited with various MNCs and big organizations for a better package, and few even got opportunities in abroad. So we are so happy that this model is working, and this model is outcome based. See, now we have moved from a rote methodologies to outcome based. We strongly feel that this outcome based approach of national education policy will definitely take our country to a greater heights.
Absolutely, sir. And thank you so much for that information. In fact, I have personally seen the impact on students of the internship program that we're trying. It's phenomenal. I think that's what is really going to bridge the gap that we call about between the academy and industry. So thank you very much. Our next panelist is someone whom I have been watching from several years. He is the CEO of India's biggest developer community company, having a community of over 1 lakh developers and tech enthusiasts. Rohit Sardana from Reskill. Rohit, I recently came across a report which mentioned about 260 million jobs will be replaced or augmented technology. And this indicates a huge need for upskilling and reskilling talent, something what Dr. Buddha was just mentioning. What are you hearing from your customers, especially on the corporate side or startups or MNCs? What are their requirements? What are they asking you to do?
Thank you, Dheeraj, for this opportunity. We tech companies, we're working with startups for a while now, and all of us has this need of skilling, reskilling, upskilling their existing workforce, and that's something that's good for the ecosystem per se. Because if I were to put myself in other shoes, hiring, as Amit also said, is a problem for us, and then retaining also is a problem for us. The size and scale of various startups. So there is a lot of emphasis. Over $70 million is being pumped by Amazon to skill their 10,000 workforces, and so on and so forth. So large companies have already started skilling, reskilling their existing workforces. Startups are also now slowly but gradually catching up. So we see a lot of these hackathons and knowledge sessions being organized by large unicorn startups currently to engage with existing workforce, add knowledge to them, add a layer of learning technology to them, changing the field of or domain of work inside their organization, helping them acquire more skills as part of the same organization, and so on and so forth. So amazing work is being done at the back of supported by AICTE at the college level, but the change or the movement or the ball has started rolling in terms of people putting in a lot of emphasis on skilling and reskilling as part of any organization, and as part of retaining and training the existing workforce.
Got it. Perfect. I mean, I'll come back to you, and something that me individually, I think I'm sure all of the Indians are really proud about, which is the innovation happening in India, especially in the government space. We talk about Aadhaar, we talk about UPI, we talk about DigiLocker, CoWIN, so many. And whenever I go and talk to my colleagues and friends outside India about the impact of UPI or the safety and security I have, because I have an app really enabling contact tracing during COVID, really has my head up high. You have been involved in many of those personally, and you have built some of them on your own. We obviously want to see a lot of more innovation coming out of India, which impacts the billions of people in the country and outside the country also. What is going to be your guidance to our young audience here on how do we build such kind of products and platforms?
Right. So I think you are absolutely, bang on when you say that India has really been at the forefront of building the citizen-centric, modern age, new age, technology-oriented platforms that have a direct impact on, on governance systems. And whether it is, Aadhaar, or it is UPI, or it is CoWIN, or it is DigiLocker, and there is a whole lot of others as well. And I've been fortunate enough to to have been positioned in the Ministry of IT, where I was directly involved with DigiLocker, and the others I have kind of had the opportunity to see and experience from very close quarters. And going back to the point that we are discussing here, and Rohit talked about in terms of reskilling and the kind of new skill sets that you would require in this new age, I think the same applies to the government as well. One of the things that I experienced when I started working in the government way back in 2015 is that the government is an entity which over the years, it obviously runs the entire country. And the way it has been doing that, one of the ways at least it's been doing that, is become really good at managing projects, right? But there is a little bit of a relearning or a reskilling that might be required in this situation, because a lot of these technology platforms actually require you to actually unlearn a bit of what you do in project management and to kind of think in terms of products and platforms, right? And that is something which might be a little bit of a new thing that people inside the government would need to imbibe. And so my role essentially when I joined the government has been kind of the biggest role, if you ask me. So we've obviously kind of built these technology platforms. We've taken them to the citizens. They are now running and addressing citizen pain points every day. But if you ask me what has been my biggest contribution, or the thing that I've actually tried to orchestrate inside the government, it is actually to help the government understand the value and the importance of building these products and these platforms, and to kind of try to bring about a little bit of a change or a rethink or a reskilling in terms of what they are best at, because they're coming from a very strong project management background, and now they have to kind of acquire these skills and actually learn these new things and run and build these platforms and these products. So a couple of things come to my mind which have been very, very useful here. One is that you got to start thinking about India's problems from first principles, right? I mean, I had as part of SlideShare, I had the opportunity to build a global scale product, which was initially targeted at the power users of Silicon Valley. But once I came and started working in the government of India, while I learned a lot of things from that experience, I also had to kind of, while I was borrowing some of the best practices, but I had to put on a very India specific ad, an Indian way of thinking. And that is very important. And that's a phenomenon that plays out in different ways, is that India needs solutions which are very India centric. You might borrow ideas, you might get inspired by what others are doing across the world, but you got to kind of, take those ideas and then implement it in a very Indian specific way. So thinking from first principles, thinking about what kind of solutions India needs from grounds up. I think the Aadhaar ecosystem, one of the really powerful things that it has done to the country is that it's made people realize the value of the API architecture and the API systems. Aadhaar was always built up as an API, right? Which meant that it kind of solves the digital identity problem. And once it does that, it also kind of, enables other products and services to kind of be built on top of it, be it UPI or DigiLocker and eSign, and there's a host of other services. So the API architecture and the API way of building products and services is something which has kind of started getting deeply ingrained inside the government. And that, to my mind, has been one of the absolutely fantastic developments where, because government systems traditionally tend to be built as, standalone and they are siloed. So once you kind of, get them to actually talk to each other using APIs, and that, that change can be really transformational.
That's right. And I so much agree with you, Amit. In fact, I've been interviewing a lot of candidates in the recent past. And whenever there's a candidate who has a government experience or has worked with the government or has seen the kind of work happening there, they talk with a lot of pride and passion. So I think all of us as citizens of India have a lot to contribute back and a lot to benefit out of the innovation happening there. So I think students who are on listening to us, I think there's something in for all of you. So I'll come back to you, Dr. Buddha. And I think all of us, many of us have discussed this challenge that technology specifically changes, people say that technology changes with a blink of an eye. How easy or difficult it is to keep the education ecosystem in pace with those changes? Because that's what we always complain, that what we do in real life and what we are being taught, there is a huge difference. What challenges do you see as a regulator, as the administrator?
Yeah, I mean, I myself is a technologist, so I'm very much interested to answer it. Because when I worked for various companies in US and various other countries, what I realized is our country is more transactional based. And technology changed the way we interact and reflect on ways we use technology in communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. And to formulate a creative solution also. I mean, see the way we have used technology to distribute the COVID vaccinations to every hook and corner of this country. That's a beauty of a jugaad, of what Indians can do. See, none of the country is able to do that. That is the best example which we can project to the entire globe. So coming back to the National Education Policy 2020, we are enabled the national education policy with advanced technologies, and it is agile in nature. So we basically works in a very scrum model, smaller life cycle projects, so that we can accommodate the change much faster, because the change management is a critical for any project. So as a technologist come project manager, I understand that implementing projects within time and in faster phases is very, very important with advanced technologies. Like example, now we are coming up with NDR H, for the higher education. We are digitizing the entire higher education, but using enterprise architecture which is open, agile in nature, and we are creating open API based methods, because as you know, India 2.0 architecture has open APIs exposed for the critical infrastructure. So we are utilizing that, and we are remodeling and connecting all the educational digital entities with it. Example, there is a concept called ABC, the Academic Bank of Credit. So there we are using the application of the various existing Aadhaar based authentication. We are using DigiLocker, etc. So it's I would like to say that the way we strategized the entire higher education as well as the school education sector is to more aligned towards the existing processes and the technologies in place. At the same time, we are creating a two-way APIs, so that we can not only consume the data from the other side, we can give the data so that they can utilize. So the thought process is just to replicate the model what we have in the NHA. So in NHA, what they did, they have created a health ID, and from there they are just trying to control, flow the information, digital information from a patient to a doctor to all the entire health network, right? In a similar fashion, here we are going to create a student ID, and that student ID as well as institute ID and the infrastructure ID of the institute, all these three together are going to work and transfer the information from one place to another place with help of these open APIs and enterprise architecture. So this is the way we strategized it, and I completely understand, and the kind of a re-engineering of our economics and societies are happening with help of this digitization and technologies. So we are keeping that in mind, and we are adopting all the new technologies. Example, we even went to a digital twinning. So recently we did one experiment from one of the German based company. They have the physical machine in Germany. We have taken a digital twin of it, and we have given it to more than 600 to 700 students of various colleges. They worked on that digital twin, they tweaked the models, and they created best of the best models out of it, and which we produced the outcome solution back to the German based company. So we are trying to use all the advanced technologies like AR, VR, digital twinning, and trying to give the best to our students as well as faculty. I mean, we are not only concentrating on students, we are even focusing on faculty. We are giving them more advanced technologies, faculty development programs, so that they can disseminate, the best knowledge to the students. And at the same time, as you know, government initiatives like software technology park, export oriented units, the special economic zones, and recently we opened up the foreign direct investment also. So example, in the budget, if you see, right, we have said, any foreign entity can have an investment in the form of center of excellence or a startup within the institutes or universities itself. So we are opened up, and lots of universities from various other countries, they are interested to establish their entities within our colleges itself. So I'm imagining kind of a college park or a Stanford model, where you have the companies residing within your institute or university, so that the student on the morning session goes to the college, and afternoon session he will work for the company, so that by the time he comes out, we want him to get empowerment on the both the sides, one on the degree he has, and the second side, he has a practical knowledge of working with 3 to 4 companies. And I completely understand and agree, because I myself was a software developer. Even yesterday night till late night I'm writing code. So as India is a land of a software developers, it is an estimated that around 4 to 5 million developers are there in India. So I have 4 to 5 million brothers and sisters. So and it is ranked third after China and the US, and I'm sure very soon, we will even cross China and US, because the kind of a movement what I see, the kind of a encouragement we are doing, and the kind of a pattern our students are following, they are very much interested on Web 3.0, and they are working aggressively, and they are trying out, and we are giving the platforms. This is where I see that GitHub comes into picture, and I would like to thank GitHub for giving this amazing opportunity to our students, which I know this is not any promotional activity, but I would like to share my personal experience with all of you, because I see that there is lots of projections saying that we are going to have more than 30 billion yearly revenue in Indian software product industry by 2025, by NASCOM, etc. But I see this in a different way. India is aiming to become a global supplier for software digital technology solutions, period. So this is where the GitHub comes into picture. And recently I had an interaction, and my honorable minister ji spoke about, why don't you teach A, B, C, D, F, G to higher education students? I said, sir, they already know, because, they studied about ABCDs in school. They said, no, I'm talking about A means artificial intelligence, B means blockchain, C means cyber security, D means data analytics and intelligence, E means electronics, F means faster coding. Maybe in his words, maybe faster coding. It means no code approach. And G is GitHub. So this is where we see the GitHub is very, very important for our national education policy, because it is a hosting provider and platform which is giving an opportunity to all our students and faculty to control and manage their projects by utilizing the version controlling and collaboration, because working individual is different and working together is different. They all are working together, see, which was lagging in old education policy. So we are utilizing the GitHub platform, and we are asking them to work together as a community, because I see GitHub has a very immensely powerful community, I think, and it's an open source platform. This is where we are utilizing. I mean, we see the way the Minister of Education is working now. It is only, as I said, it wants to give only the best of the best to the students and the faculty. We are encouraging them, saying that, you go on GitHub, try utilizing these platforms. Now we have a very powerful student community, but that student community resides on GitHub, and we are so happy. And I was recently reading the numbers. I was amazed to see that the kind of a community you have is more than 73 million. And with 4 million organizations, I mean, what a beautiful platform it is. And this is where our students are gaining insights. They are learning, they are doing coding, and they are using student offerings which you have given in a real-time experience. And there's lots of various development tools which you have given for free of cost. I would like to thank all GitHub and GitHub partners for it. I mean, I'm not doing any kind of a PR here, but I'm sharing my experience. Recently, I visited a couple of colleges. There, when I interacted with them, on the Center of Excellence groups we have created in various places for innovation and research, I'm so happy to see that they all are using this GitHub, something called campus. You have a campus, where global campus, I don't exactly remember the name. I think it's a global campus. There, the students, teachers, and they are utilizing the tools to generate the next generation softwares. And it's a blazing fast. I really love the way it is so fast. Yesterday night, I'm pulling the code from other developer. I was amazing the kind of fastness it has showed, and the code spaces as a collaborative environment. The last but not least, I'm just going on and on, but the security, what you have, because I see sometimes what happens, we will just write some secret or some kind of a secure code unsecurely on GitHub and push it. And what the beauty thing of GitHub is, it automatically detects and deactivates all the secrets committed to the repos. This is a beautiful thing. I don't know who invented this, but the kind of a contribution they are doing to the society, to the software society is just infinite. And the project coordination is last thing, because as a project manager I need to manage. So I sometimes manage this using all the tasks, using this management tool which you have. So last but not least, I see that we are a very large in number. Indian developers are major players in the software ecosystem. And I see that the future belongs to India with a great share of work from different parts of the world. I see that Indians are going to get settled in various places. As of now, when I used to work for Microsoft and various other organizations, I see 30% are Indians, on the software side. But now I envision in a different way. I see that 30 to 40% experts on the automobile industry, on the oil and gas industry, on the teaching side. I think these all are possible because we have opened up the doors, and the national education policy is fully concentrating on innovation, on the startup ecosystem. And I'm so happy to see that more than 7.5 lakh startups, and they are very well working together as a team and trying to do something which is really amazing. I see someone is working on a gene technologies which I never imagined that will happen from Indian land. I mean, that kind of a technological advancements and skills and knowledge what our Indian students are displaying. And they are not looking only to become a job seekers, they are looking towards a job creators. And I thank GitHub for giving these kind of opportunities to all our students. And if you have any questions or concerns, as I already mentioned, the national education policy is open. We are ready to accept any change which is betterment for our country. And we are so happy to be part of various other organizations. We started working with other organizations, trying to understand their requirements. We are giving our interns to them, and they all are working for various organizations and creating a capacity building. Not only for MNCs, we are creating capacity building for government organizations also.
Thank you so much. I don't have words to actually thank you enough for your kind words. And I think it's great honor for us to receive first-hand feedback from you, not only as a user of GitHub, but also when you see others in the education ecosystem using and benefiting out of GitHub. All I can say is that we as GitHub are really committed to India. We are honored to actually being involved in most of the projects, whether it is COVIN, whether it is the Health ID at NHA, Arogya Setu, and we really want to be involved in the Student ID project that you're leading, sir. All our support and everything will be at your disposal. Thank you, and I think we are just running out of time. Rohit, I have my last question to you, and that's going to be very, very interesting for all the students. What are the top skills that you see in demand?
Of course, cloud has suddenly become very big. A lot of job opportunities in cloud. artificial intelligence, machine learning. I'm just saying some of the skills that are top of my mind. DevOps, that's where the jobs are happening. Data science, including data analytics, data visualization, cybersecurity, again, non-tech UI, UX in a broader sense, mobile app development, and so on and so forth. Either some of the skills or sectors or technologies wherein there are a lot of job opportunities that have come up, especially in last 6 months, 6 to 12 months or so. And I think this will continue to remain. These trends will continue to remain for maybe next 12 to 24 months.
All right. I think we'll have to wrap up here. I want to thank all of you, Dr. Buddha, Amit, Rohit. Really thank you. I'm sure the participants have learned a lot in our discussion. And my suggestion to all the participants will be to engage with our panelists on the social media. I know all of them are very active. So whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, on their behalf, I'm inviting you to engage with them. Thank you so much. I will give back to the host now.
Fantastic session, and super proud of the opportunities that GitHub Education is enabling for the student community at a massive scale in India. And also a great comment on the importance of culture in driving long-term impact. Great insights from the panelists. What a day has it been, Dhana?
Absolutely. What are your favorite moments from this show, Mohit?
I'll call out a couple of them. I think Nandan's and Anna Roy's shout out to all developers on how they can contribute to nation building definitely hits top of the chart for me. And second one is 8 million plus developers in India who are using GitHub to contribute to global projects out there. That's the second one highlight. I think it was called out in Thomas's keynote. What about you, Dhana? What are your favorite moments from the day?
I think I love the video on how code is building India, and we are on it. And I loved hearing from all our amazing viewers. So the comments and tweets were good to hear. And you know what, Mohit, seeing you in that snorkel gear was fun too. Thanks to all the amazing folks who made this event possible, both on screen and backstage, and to all of you amazing viewers for making this show possible.
Also, a shout out and thanks to all the fellow hubbers for moderating the panel and all the participating guests for sharing such insightful thoughts and thought provoking comments about all the personal examples that they brought into those panel discussions. We have a lot of buzz going on Twitter. Let's invite some of the tweets. Let's take them here on what our audience has to say about day one. So here it goes. First one is from Jeet2003. He says, it's been more than 2 hours and so many new things to learn. Day one of GitHub Constellation India 2022. Yes, absolutely. There's been so many learnings for me as well across all these sessions.
Let's see another tweet, Mohit. Divakar K says, GitHub Constellation shout out for Mohit and Dana. Thank you so much, my friend. Awesome energy levels. You're the life of this event. My friends, he says. Thank you, Divakar. We are pumped to see you tomorrow on day two as well. Thank you.
Let's hear one more tweet. It's from It's Susmita Day. At GitHub India, amazing sessions going on. I got to know about the number of rising open source communities and startups in India using GitHub and developers every day. There's a new India being built today, and we are on it. GitHub commits to India. Loved this one. A great shout out to GitHub Constellation. Wow, totally resonate with all the thoughts, Susmita. Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts.
Absolutely. You know what? We are happy to announce that everyone whose tweets were featured today will win swag. So everyone whose tweets were featured, please DM us your address to the GitHub India on Twitter channel. Also, hit us on Twitter and let us know your best moments from day one. Best tweets still stand a chance to win more swag.
Great. So we look forward to day 2, which is super packed with multiple sessions and tracks. So do check out the schedule and subscribe to your favorite topics. And do not miss the opening performance from Abhinay Khoparzi, followed by keynotes from Stormy Peters and Matthew Pucklow, and many more sessions across the 3 tracks: community, DevOps, and security. With that, we will take your leave with a promise to be back tomorrow. These were your hosts, Dhanashri and Mohit, signing off. Have a great day.